in Washington targeting the White House with those Ukraine-esque drones. You think it's possible? Simple question. I'm saying get ready. You a betting man? Put your money on it. Put your money on it. Put your money on it. I would do it. Absolutely. If I'm a globalist, if I'm Lindsey Graham, if I'm Marco Rubio, if I'm one of the cabals, one of the people who I think, and I trust I'm wrong, basically took over and have contaminated the president's administration when it comes to foreign affairs, because I don't think the president knows what the hell he's doing. I don't think he's getting the right information. I don't think at all. I do not think so. I love this man. Okay? I love this man, but understand something. If you look at how many days he has been in office since the inauguration and ask yourself, what percentage of his term is that? What would the number be? We always have to remember this. Think about this. What would it be? He's been in office 135 days. 135 days. That's 9.2% of his entire term. 9%. But it seems like he's been forever. I have a friend of the family. I don't know why, and I saw this a while back, but we have a friend, young man, who said, is there any chance of us actually seeing in our lifetime a nuclear war? Is there any chance? And nuclear war takes on a different take. Is it, Armageddon, the end of civilization? How about a tactical nuclear device? Tactical versus strategic, something that's a low yield, but really packs a wallop. And all you hear the word nuclear or nuclear. You want to see a freak? See, Americans we don't know what's going on. And I'm going to speak to you as I would an adult, and I'm going to assume you're smart and you know what's going on. We have members in our country right now, and I'm glad I can say this to you now because maybe they're not listening, which is fine because they go to bed early. And their idea of news is Fox News. And there's nothing wrong with God bless Fox News, but that's as far as it gets. Fox News is one of the most dangerous groups of people because they lull you into complacency. See, CNN isn't dangerous because you reject them. MSDNC is not dangerous at all because most people reject them. They're there just for clamor. But Fox is different. Breitbart is different. Others are different. There's this absolute neocon, pro-NATO, warmongering, Russophobic world. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Bet on it. There's going to be a false flag, meaning an attack of some sort that will be blamed on Iran, Hamas, well, not Hamas, not even Hezbollah, but Iran and certainly Russia. Absolutely. Let's look at this. Let me give you you know how it would look? Would you like to hear what this would sound like? By the way, 800-848-9222. I always want to hear from you because your take is terrific. Think about this. Imagine the following, okay? Here's the scenario. This is what I would say. Let's say I worked this is a movie. I always tell people this. If I were to do a movie on how this would happen, like Spielberg or something, it'd be so simple. And it would involve somebody like a Lindsey Graham, who scares me. Lindsey Graham, John McCain, NATO, all of the globalists, NATO. Everybody makes NATO out to be like, oh, they're just what does NATO do for us? President Trump was 100% correct. Well, let's assume this. Let's say later on in the year, maybe October, think about this, right around October, right around midterms, you know what I mean? Coming up before this. Imagine the time is 6:43 a.m. I'm just giving you some times. This is the story. This is my movie. Early risers, people in D.C., They glance skyward and they see a swarm of roughly 50 drones, quadcopters, whatever, large commercial grade drones, kind of like the ones that we saw in New Jersey that everybody just stopped talking about. Remember that? Why all of a sudden did they just stop talking about them? Oh, there's nothing here. That's not what I heard. It's not what I heard. Didn't you hear they were looking for some type of missing nuclear material or something? They were at night. I had to sneeze. Pardon me. The only time you have a drone at night is for obvious detection purposes other than cameras. You see, a drone is a camera that flies for the most part, and unless it's a weaponized drone. So when you saw them at night, they were there either to detect, to use devices to find out perhaps maybe if there was some type of radioactive device or some system, whatever it is called, it was obvious. But you were told, look the other way. Look the other way. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. So back to my story. Here's the plot. 6:43, let's say. 50 large drones suddenly appear and hover silently in formation over Lafayette Park, right in front of the White House. Directly across. They're ominously still. They carry black and gray insignias, insignias, and that should be the tip-off, faintly resembling Russian military symbols in that script, the Cyrillic script, right? I mean, this should be absolute square. This is the tip-off. But Americans, and the gut buckets and the Jesse Waters and the other, they will go for it hook, because you never turn away. You never ask questions. You never say, wait a minute, we're being set up. Oh, no. Then at 7:02, within minutes, a viral X, a Twitter, a video explodes across the internet, released somehow from somebody, and it says, drones over the White House, Russian attack imminent. This is the way it's going to be portrayed. And the video is traced to, let's say, a Ukrainian-affiliated influencer living in, let's say, Brooklyn, who tags Ukrainian intelligence and the U.S. State Department. I mean, to most people, they say, oh, for the love of God. But oh, no. Oh, no. Our, dare I say, conservative friends will say, aha. And by the way, this will be, and this is another tip-off, when left and right both agree, because they hate Putin vehemently, they're frothing. So both sides say, I knew it. So you got it so far? Then 8 minutes later, 7:10, 7:15, this is very early. Remember, it's early enough to catch that. Can't be too early. It's got to be right now when people are kind of getting up. Mainstream media pile-on, MSDNC, CNN, breaking banners, Fox, OAN, everybody, breaking news. It's a news froth. And once one person says it, they all pile on. White House in lockdown, Russian drones allegedly spotted. Remember, I'm not saying this. Please don't let this think I'm War of the Worlds. Don't tune in right now and say, what is he saying? This is a hypothetical. It's a movie I'm coming up with. It's a Steven Spielberg. Zelensky warns of Ukraine escalation. And then you can hear the ahas. Then later on, 7:18 a.m., this mysterious Telegram channel publishes a, quote, leaked communique, allegedly from Russian GRU, claiming responsibility for the drone flight as a message to Washington. Again, none of this verified, just hinted. The document is later debunked as a fabrication created with AI, but not before it fuels hours of cable news hysteria. Remember, this is the news you want. You will always act according to what you want the news to be. 8 o'clock. NORAD then, let's say, confirms that the drones are non-weaponized and most are traced back to a fleet of Ukrainian manufactured commercial UAVs sold to, let's say, a private security firm in Poland. And then later on in the morning, 10 o'clock or so, an anonymous whistleblower drops a bombshell. The drones were staged by a rogue faction within the U.S., basically a pro-Ukraine lobbying front, financed in part by some crypto-rooted group through Kyiv to frame Russia and manipulate Western public opinion ahead of some stalled deal. And by evening, the White House disavows early assumptions. The president calls the incident an act of foreign disinformation. But meanwhile, markets tumble. NATO raises alert levels. The public is divided, freaked out, and the swarm, we will find out, was unarmed, but emotionally and politically weaponized. Forensic metadata will show that the onboard firmware, that they were pre-programmed in English, whatever it is. Or worse, a little weaponry goes off. A little bit. You know, throughout history, we've had cases where there was a plane that flew and landed on the White House lawn. There was a fellow one time who showed up in an elevator, I think next to Trump. This is coming. I'm telling you. And there is no suspicion on anyone's part. Yesterday I heard, and I'm listening around, I'm sampling, I'm checking, and there's this idea that Ukrainians were brilliant and attacking these Russian planes. And they were laughing, they were mocking Moscow or whatever, because the planes were lined up like that. You know why they were? By virtue of the treaty, some salt-based treaty or something along those lines. But it was a treaty. There was a New START treaty, Open Skies. I was reading the Strategic Offensive Reductions Treaty. There's all these treaties that say you have to have, this is how you have to leave your nuclear base. And they were following the rules and zapped. Meanwhile, you are of the belief that this is Zelensky doing this. Now, the question we have to ask is, with Istanbul around the corner, when you sit down with Lavrov, and Lavrov says to you, I know you didn't do this. I know Zelensky didn't do this on his own. Who funded him? Who was behind this? You did this. Does Trump know this? Do you think Trump knows what he's doing? I'm going to ask you a very simple question. And I know we always love to respond to this knee-jerk, because the other day when he was saying, I can't believe what Putin's doing, and then they said, you realize he sent 700 drones. Oh, I didn't know that. Marco Rubio, couldn't trust this guy as far as I could throw him. Rubio, Lindsey Graham, these are McCain, these are warmonger, these are war profiteers, these are neocons at levels and globalist lovers you cannot believe. And yet we have this group of people, and please, I don't include you in this, but I call them the conservative claptrap, the usual suspects, who just think that somehow being conservative or pro-American means to applaud and laud and just wax excited about war, until you realize the following. Putin and others have said, just as we have said, if you push us and you keep doing this, we will have no other recourse than to launch some limited but tactical nuclear weapons. The same way we would. Why do you think Japan attacked us? They knew they couldn't beat us. Why do you think they did this? They kept calling this Russia's Pearl Harbor. Do you know how scary this is? Are you frightened? Or are you still talking about maybe trans athletes? Or maybe you're talking about, I don't know, the great big beautiful bill or whatever that thing is called. Do you know what's happening right now? I want to hear from you. 800-848-9222. Here is the question. Very simple. Do you believe one day you will wake up, or in the middle of the day or whatever the time is, and you will hear that a nuclear weapon has been detonated? And then you're going to see everybody on TV lining up saying, see, I told you so. Do you think that's possible? 800-848-9222. Sorry to start off like this, but these are very dangerous times. They are itching for a war. They are deep down inside. The neocons want this more than anything you can imagine. Lynn's in Westchester. Lynn, what do you think, Lynn?
I was just, Lionel, I'm first-time caller. I say that it reminds me of the movie The Sum of All Fears.
Yep.
It's you know it?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yep. My husband and I saw it in the movies.
But aside from that,
also it's been on television.
Aside from the movie, what do you feel? Are you trepidatious? Are you scared? Does this frighten
listening to you, I was petrified when I first heard you.
You know, there are so many people. People don't understand how these folks are. You know, there's a guy on TV, and I'm sure you've seen him, and you'll love him. You know, his name is, was it General Jack Keane? Seems like a nice guy. And we have this obeisant love, this fanatical, it's like an eroticism regarding the notion of generals. We play like the Marines, the few, the proud, and God bless the military. I'm not in any way suggesting we don't need them. Of course we need them. We love war. Recently we had Memorial Day, and people were confusing Memorial Day with Veterans Day. We love to see flyovers. We love to see, even at our athletic events, you know, the national anthem and flyovers and color guards and the Marines and which is great, wonderful people. And there's a group called to call these people neocons. You know, this Jack Keane. There's something called the Institute for the Study of War. You know who these folks are? This was founded by Kimberly Kagan, who is a sister-in-law to Robert Kagan, the godfather of neocon interventionism. And they're funded by Raytheon, General Dynamics, defense contractors. And their goal is they push a narrative of perpetual war. This is Victoria Nuland. This is I know who they are. My people know who they are. The globalists, these are people who were involved. We have this idea where we love the idea. We go crazy whenever when we see there's some military action. Do you remember a while back? And there was this issue where Israel had issued a number of pagers. Remember these famous pagers to people, and it took 2 years, and they were detonated, and these people were killed. Hamas. And I remember listening. There are these, I almost go to see, I wonder what the Stooges are saying. And there are these people in the world of not talk radio, but just they're the conservative contingent because they believe that their audience and their numbers and their metrics depend upon them always lauding and applauding war. And somebody said, what if one of these pagers, let's say, had gone off in an airplane? What if individuals, what if children, if anybody had been hurt or what have you? And the reaction was, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. So what exactly, and again, I'm not trying to relitigate that, but I'm saying, isn't it funny how we love war, bomb sites? We love I think it happened during Desert Storm, and we really have no idea of what this means. We're like little kids sometimes playing. Did you ever play soldiers? You got a big bag of these little green plastic, and you pretend and you play soldier, and you blow things up. I'm telling you right now, if ever you want to pull the wool over anybody's eyes, this country is the best. You know this fellow in Boulder? What are they making with this? They can't get enough of this. I'm looking at my screens. Of course, I've got one screen that's CNN, which is horrible. Another screen, which is MSDNC, which is unwatchable. Spectrum, poor thing, 4 people watching. And then there's Fox News. Egyptian illegal tried to kill Americans. Turn it Heard it. Never de-escalate. Never talk about the people on our streets trying to kill Americans, regular plain old criminals. But remember, if it bleeds, it leads. And if ever there was a group of people who don't want to hear anything about how they are being played perfectly, set up for a guaranteed false flag, it's these folks. You never want to hear this. I'm going to say this right now, and you may not agree or disagree. You know it's 30 past the hour. You know that, right? And this is the Lionel Show on the other side of midnight. And the Lionel Show. It's also called Make Way for Mr. Nobody and Bolding for Sports Shirts. We're not really sure about those. Let's go back to the phones. Let's go to Jay. Jay in Queens. You're on the Lionel Show, Jay.
Good morning, Lelo, Lai.
Yes, sir.
You reminded me, boy, that when you started with that conversation about potential drones, you reminded me of Orson Welles' famous radio call.
Mercury Theater. Or yep. We would do it. We would fall for this so easily. Now let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Do you want war? Is there anybody saying anything about this? Do you know does anybody really understand what there's no such thing as a limited, but a tactical nuclear war would be? Have we forgotten this? When I hear people think, do you want to go to war with Iran or anybody? I think there are people who, honest to God, they have been so detached, they think that everything's a video game. They say these things and they think to themselves, well, I mean, how much are we going to be played by this? Sandra, New Jersey. Sandra, what do you think, Sandra? What's on your mind, Sandra?
Okay, let me tell you. Hold on a second. Okay. I think,
hold on. Take all the time you want.
No, I couldn't get my phone to work. Before I was reading an article that Tom Homan said that we should expect a nice attack sometime soon.
Of course.
And that was disturbing to me because it's bad enough every day we see permeating hate. We see it all around. We see all these sad things happening to people. And that's not enough. Now we have to look forward to an attack. And he blames it on Biden. He says on account of him with all these.
Yes, in part. But there is a group of people, Sandra, and people, and I think it's hard for people to grasp this notion. But do you know how much money is made in war? Let's go back. Let's go back to, we almost have to step into this. I told you I had my dream of having a class on summers, and we would start off with, how do I say this? We would start off with the way the war is. We use a term called neocon. And a neocon, remember one thing. Here's a rule. Whenever you hear neoliberalism, neoconservatives, it's the opposite. Neoconservative is not conservative. They're not conservative. They're lapsed Trotskyites. These are acolytes of Leo Strauss. They are the Scoop Jackson Democrats. There are people who, listen to this, whenever you bring up the neocons, they say, aha, that's a code word for anti-Semitism. See, anti-Semitism stops, like the word racism, it stops any discussion. You go, up, you're transphobic, up, you're homophobic, up, you just stop. It stops whatever. And the idea is that somehow, and I don't know how this was, because there was a person called the paleoconservative. This is Ronald Reagan, George Will, Pat Buchanan, those folks. Paleoconservative. Remember what Ronald Reagan did? Remember Lebanon? Remember the Marine barracks? He got the hell out of there. He said, this is ridiculous. I'm not interested in this. Ronald Reagan obsessed over nuclear war. Obsessed. Not anymore. So right around the time of 9/11, there was a group called PNAC. Remember these folks? Project for a New American Century. And these were terms, neocons, and who are they? And these are people who used to be considered liberals during the 60s. You know what their problem was with the Vietnam War? We didn't finish the job. We didn't go far enough. Oh, they wanted to spread this democracy, and we had the power around the world. And they truly, believe it or not, many of them were not doing this to cover up war profiteering goals, but they were actually doing this because they believed, believe it or not, that we had this mission from God to spread democracy. I mean, it was crazy talk. Bill Kristol, Podhoretz, the usual suspects. Oh, they were. And Wolfowitz, Cheney, Bush to an extent. Now, at the time, remember, I don't fit into this group. And I was always pushed to the side. And my group, the people that I represent, and there are millions and millions, and I'll introduce you to them. We said, wait a minute, what's going on here? We see right through this. And the liberals, the people who used to be against war, they have no problem with this. So all of a sudden this changed. And then we realized, wait a minute, it's a number of issues. Not only is it the neoconservatives, by the way, neocons are this term for anybody who's a warmonger. And technically speaking, that's incorrect. But then we have the military-industrial complex and the war profiteers like you cannot believe. And everybody was warning. And here's what they did. They turned propaganda on its head. Do you remember when right around the first Gulf War, we had this thing called the embedded reporter. Remember that? It was ingenious. We take somebody who was and we give him a uniform. We give him a flag check. Christy Nome does that. Alina Habba had that. Hey, would you like to go in a raid hat? Can I? Oh, you'd look really super sexy with your vest, and we'll let you carry an M4. It's not loaded, but you can wear a helmet, and we can play soldier. Oh, you look like Charlie's Angels. People love to play soldier. They love it. So right around the first Gulf War, in particular, you had that fellow from NBC who was sitting on top of the tank. He had some thrombus or some deep vein thrombo. He died of something. It was horrible. But they became, all of a sudden, they became part and parcel of the team. On day one, little Sally Lipschitz from NBC says, "Hi, guys, I'm here on the USS Arizona, and I'm covering." Within 2 days, yeah, I'm on an A110 Warthog. We got boys, we got a sortie. I'm meeting with Mr. Command. It's like, who is this? It's a Sergeant Rock all of a sudden. And they loved it. And the numbers went through the roof. And then there was poor Phil Donahue. Remember Phil Donahue from MSNBC? Hey, wait a minute. What are we doing this war for? Shut up! And they fired him. Remember what the Gulf War was, the first Gulf War? Remember what it was? Remember April Glasby? Of course not. Listen, you got to understand something. If you want to know my world, you have to understand a couple of things. And please, I don't take this the wrong way, but I look at my fellow Americans like I do a weird dysfunctional family. They don't know anything. They don't read anything. They don't even know geography. They don't have maps or globes. They know nothing. They know bumper sticker taglines because social media have reduced all of our messaging into little glyphs and orts and memes, little tiny packets, quanta of information without knowing anything about the truth. Pamela in New Jersey, you're on the Lionel Show.
When I heard Blumenthal and Lindsey Graham went over there, and then the drone attack, I went, uh-oh.
That's it, right.
October surprises early this year. I actually told my husband, look for the bright light. Uh-oh.
Pamela, do you think, with all due respect, the president knows what he's doing? Do you think he knows who these people are? Do you think? I mean,
they undermined him. We were just undermined it, and this is big. This is a big deal.
Sometimes I hear things that change. So one day he talked to me. He says, "We're going to go into Gaza. We're going to make Gaza waterfront property." It's like, what? And then that went away. And then people said, that didn't sound right. Okay, I'll back off of that. And then the other day he said, "No, that's it. We're done." And Bibi was saying, what? And then he wants to meet with Putin. Then he's mad with Putin. And then somebody said, "Mr. President, the reason why Putin did this was there were 700 drone attacks. They even tried to kill him in his helicopter. Oh, I didn't know that. Marco Rubio didn't know that. Lavrov is telling them. Nobody knows what's going on. Who in their right mind would pick Marco Rubio? What are you talking about? Who are these people? Who? I don't understand this. Lindsey Graham, what does he not understand? Lindsey Graham is a very, very, shall we say, conflicted person. I'll just leave it at that. Who right. They say, what was the expression? No matter what the election, after a couple of days or weeks, everybody turns into John McCain. I don't understand it. What we are going to have, and I'm telling you, Putin is one thing that he said. He said specifically, and by the way, I have no interest whatsoever in Iran, Russia, any place other than here. I'm not America first. I'm America only. I don't have time for this. I don't have time, and I don't have time with these war profiteers. I thought we already, Pamela, I don't know how old you are, but didn't we learn from Vietnam? I thought we learned our lessons. Why?
I know I did.
I don't know why we're doing it. I don't know where this came from. And when you talk to people, and here's the best thing, when you talk to people, it blows my mind as to how people don't know anything. I know my theme is becoming recurring. I recognize this. I remember reading from this in 2014, when Russia basically said, there's 4 areas, Donetsk, Lugansk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, plus Crimea, 4 oblasts in Crimea. And they, by the way, the Crimea, they have had a military presence since 1783. Okay. They said, we're not, but there were referenda and blah, blah, blah. And I look at people, and so help me God, I get a blank stare. They're looking at me like, what are you talking about? I said, don't you understand? They said, no, you. What do you think this is? I don't know. Do you really want to go to war? And whenever we talk about, when Lindsey Graham, they talk about Iran made a deal with Russia. They said, listen, if we get blasted, you're going to help us, right? Okay. Wait a minute. Hold it. What happens to the Middle East? What happens to all of our deals? Nobody seems to care. Let me really reduce it to this. There's something called American exceptionalism. And American exceptionalism is this wonderful deal. American exceptionalism started with Ronald Reagan, and Rush Limbaugh, to his credit, God bless him, promoted this idea that we're the best. Do you think our military is able to really handle a full-fledged, spot-on war? The wars are going to be over there. Whenever we talked about, how do I say this? Whenever we talk about Iran, we look at Iran as being these theocratic folks who just sit around and they wear funny hats and they're all called Khomeini, they're just, they wear beards and they're no match for us. No match. Okay. And that's what we think. Well, first thing they're going to do is they're going to scuttle a ship right in the Strait of Hormuz. And your oil is not going to go up a couple of bucks, not $20, but I don't even know how much. This is this artery, and you have to look at the Strait of Hormuz and the Straits of Hormuz. And there's this angle that when you take tankers through it, you have to stop, make a hard right, and in this little area, there's this little area that is so critical, and all you have to do is just block it, and that's it. No insurers will allow tankers through that. Nobody will go. And you are up to, it's over with. The Houthis, the Bab al, I don't remember the name of this. I never can remember. This is called the Gate of Misery. And when the first time I heard about this, I said, I got to go visit there. The Gate of Misery. This is called this one particular area. It's right there at the Red Sea. And these people, the Houthis, are made out to be part of Yemen. They're made out to be like prehistoric people chucking spears at you. Do you know what happens if they just, it's this little tiny artery, this little tiny. And I look at people, and you must understand my grief. I say, you don't understand what I'm saying, do you? No. When I talk about AI, you don't understand what I'm saying, do you? No. What I mentioned yesterday, Operation Mockingbird and our history, no. No. I'm walking around saying, I have the most accurate watch or clock in the world. Nobody else has this. And I see nothing but a bunch of people, and bless their hearts. Look, I don't expect anything from the left. I really don't. But from the right, especially people who claim to love the military, oh my God, it's like a fetish. But when you talk about military history and the actual specifics of what war is, they look at you like, I don't know what you're talking about. We have this idea that once we get started, once you get started, it was a shaka. Anyway, once we get started, somehow God is on our side. We will win because we're the greats and nobody's better than we are. That's nonsense. I'm telling you. Listen to what I'm saying. You better start getting scared, my friends. I mean, really scared, because remember, when there's chaos, everybody benefits. All right, my friends, 800-848-9222. I love to talk of people in the military currently, people who know what I'm talking about. And you'd be surprised, people who work in law enforcement, who have heard things along the line that never panned out, but they were sworn to secrecy, because all it takes is just the slightest little disruption of our order, of a pipe bomb, a car bomb, something, a drone attack, and watch for drones next to the White House. Is that impossible? Is that impossible? And I worry about President Trump. Why? Because look what happened last time when they tried to kill him. Nothing. We've never followed up. We don't know what happened. He is all by himself. And the people who supposedly love him, the conservatives, the conservative media, they're not saying anything. They're talking about some lunatic in Boulder or some athlete who actually is a man. Low-hanging fruit. And we're going to put an end to that. If you think that the folks, the globalists, are going to let this chance go by and not provoke and goad either Russia or Iran or somebody in this, if you don't see this coming, there's no hope for you. Jeffrey in Manhattan, you're on the Lionel Show.
Yeah, I'm calling up to say that it is a total pleasure. An old guy, an 83-year-old retired lawyer. And,
bless your heart.
Film person, and I did a lot of defense law, did a lot of this, a lot of prosecution, this and that over the years. And I've been retired for about 25 years now, and I watch a lot of TV, much too much because I got a bad back. And I watch the news a lot, and I get the Times, and I read a lot of papers, and I'm online. And I haven't heard anybody espouse anything to do with what really happened. And I know what really happened, and I know the promise. And I know what Baker said, and I know about Germany reuniting, and I know about no going further than an inch, towards Russia, and I know about
exactly.
And it's all written down. Washington University has it all documented.
Exactly.
Everybody saw it. They all agreed to it, and I hear people say to me, "Well, it wasn't." Sorry,
Jeffrey.
You're talking about world peace. We could have had peace with Russia.
Jeffrey, you ever read the works of George Kennan? You remember the X article?
I know George Kennan, and I know how he felt, and I know Matlock felt, and I know Kissinger even said back then that there's a red line. You don't cross the red line.
And they wanted... Wait, hold it.
Clinton crossed the red line because he wanted the votes, the Midwest Ukrainian votes.
But let's also look at something which is very, very critical. There was a time when Kennan and others said after, and this is important, after the fall of the Soviet Union, NATO should be dissolved. This is nothing but an attack. There's no need for NATO. So what happened was, you're going to love this. So when Gorbachev and others said, wait a minute, we made a deal. You talked about the reunification of, Mr. Gorbachev tear down that wall and blah, blah, blah. You said you would not move 1 inch east towards Russia. And they said, that wasn't written down. That's number one. But also, as a fellow lawyer, you will know this is the best one. They said
that was now Germany won't move any closer. That's what they said. Yeah.
right. Well,
Okay,
well, NATO in essence, NATO.
I know what they meant, but I know
but what the most important thing was, they said, but you must understand, there is no Soviet Union anymore. So any deal that we made with the Soviet Union doesn't apply to you, Mr. Gorbachev, because there's no more Soviet Union. And he said, what? Yeah, you're Russia. We never made a deal with Russia. We promised the Soviet Union. And he looked at him and he said, you can. And then they said, plus, as you say so correctly, this was never recorded. There's no evidence of this 1 inch forward business. Well, at George Washington University, yes, there was. NATO moving 1 foot. This was the reference. And they had it there. So guess what happened? Putin came along in 2000, and he was kind of their Reagan. And he said, I'll make a deal with you. Since there's no more Soviet Union, can we join NATO? They said, what? Can we join? Can Russia join NATO? No, you can't join NATO. Well, why not? We want the same protection. What, from you? No, there's no Soviet Union. And then they said, well, can we join the EU? No. Now, remember something. What motivates most of us is this Rocky and Bullwinkle world. People believe, and I don't know why, that this, I'll get you a little squirrel, that this hardcore, rapacious, mean, scowling, oh, I'm serious, straight out of Frank Capra's Central Casting. This is what they view Russia as to this day. And I'm thinking, I don't want any problems with them. They pose no threat to us until we goad them on behalf of NATO. What are we doing? Why? They want war. War is money. War is control. The worst thing in the world they have is stasis. Stu in Brooklyn, you're on the Lionel show and this thing here. Go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Lionel. It's Babel Mandab, and it's a choke point. Lionel, did you ever hear of a guy named Gus W. Weiss?
It sounds familiar. Who is he for those of us who are watching or listening?
He was a advisor, technical advisor to several presidents. And when the CIA went to him in 1982 and said to him, the Russians are stealing our technology, what shall we do? And Gus Weiss said, we should help them get it. And we did. And in 1982, you had the biggest explosion, non-nuclear, on this planet in eastern Siberia, which ripped up the Russian oil infrastructure for hundreds of miles. That set the Russians back almost 5-6 years in their economy, and not a single person died. And the point is, that's where we are in terms of an Iran. This idea of going to war, it's done. You see in the Ukraine what happens when you just go head-to-head with current military technology. It's just, the butcher bill becomes untenable for both sides. But what the Ukrainians just did in wiping out the Russian fleet that could have been used to
first of all, they
didn't
wipe out. First of all, they didn't wipe out the fleet. That's number one. And the other issue is, what do you think was the purpose? And specifically, who was it who allowed for this? Provided? Do you think Zelensky, who's driving around pulling people off the streets for conscription, do you think he did that without the help of CIA, MI6, whoever it was? How are we supposed to go to Istanbul when we sit across and we say, listen, let's work this thing out? And they said, okay, excuse me, before we do this, what did you have to do? What did you have to do with this recent attack? What did you have to do with the 700 to 1,000 drones? What did you have to do against the assassination attempt against Putin? What do we say? Hey, look, forget about that. How did we feel when somebody tried to kill our president? I know that the left was happy. You know, there's this thing you have to understand. And let me say this again to you. I don't like these people. I don't love these people. I don't hate these people. I'm indifferent to them. I have nothing to do with them. I don't care about them. We have business here. What are we doing? What are we doing? What is the purpose? Who are these idiots who love to talk about, we're going to go there, we're going to fight them? You're not going to fight them. You know, recently when we had Fleet Week and I see these young men and women walking around, I think to myself, my God, we treat them like just fodder. John, you're on the Lionel show.
Good morning, sir. I'd just like to say that people, like Trump and everybody, they're all like, oh, Putin's out of his mind now. He's doing this. He's saying this. He's been saying the same thing for the last couple of years. Istanbul Plus was where they wanted to start until Boris Johnson made a little trip to Kiev.
Exactly. Remember that.
Stop the agreement like
right.
3 days into the war. He put the nix on everything.
Exactly.
And then they wonder why, they can't get anything. It's like, it'd be like me hiring you as my lawyer and somebody I'm suing hire somebody as their lawyer and they're the judge. That's like the United States trying to say, we're going to mediate.
But what's happening, remember, Zelensky, by the way, now I don't know how much he's been offered, where his money, his billions are. Is he going to end up in Miami or Cyprus? I have no idea. But he and Putin sat down and they were going to work something out. And Boris Johnson came in and said, oh, no, you don't. Oh, no. You're not stopping this. And as of today, are they still involved? No. Are they in NATO? No. And I just look at all of these TVs and I think to myself, my God, it's like going back and listening to, I guess, the way medicine would have sounded in the days of potions and poultices and voodoo, and it's like it's a view of the world that I don't understand. I don't fit in. There was a concept, and I love the term because you say, "Well, are you a conservative?" I don't know what that means. That term has just been. But there's one I love the most, and the doctrine is realism. Doesn't it sound good to be realistic? And Thucydides, Machiavelli, Thomas Hobbes, George Kennan, who, by the way, is the father of U.S. containment. We always forget about him. And another one, John Mearsheimer. And Mearsheimer is the mother. And there are two people I just love to listen to in terms of this unique perception. Mearsheimer and also Douglas McGregor, the colonel. Everybody else is just these hacks. Remember Hackworth years ago? Speaking of hacks. And this notion of realism starts off with a couple of things, and let's just stop. Forget everything you've ever heard. And there's like 5 basic rules. And the first one's that the people who run the show are states, not NGOs, not global institutions, but sovereign nations. Nations run the show. It's about the United States, not the Heritage Foundation or not, whatever, the UN or, no, not the CFR, not Bilderberg. It's the United States. The next rule is that the world is an anarchy. And that means compared to hierarchy. There's nobody above us. There's no world government. It's a jungle. No referee. It's just survival. It has nothing to do. There is no cooperation. Nothing. It's a brutal, dog-eat-dog world. National interest. And this is the most important. Trump's ideology. We act to protect our power, our security, our influence, not to spread values or ideals. And this goes exactly against the neoconservative. That's precisely what they wanted to do. And the other rule is that power matters more than intentions. Look, good intentions are wonderful, but good intentions don't stop tanks. We focus on military strength and economic leverage and deterrence, but not goodness and ideas and they hate our freedom. No, they don't hate our freedom. And moralizing foreign policy is dangerous. The political realists out there reject this, this utopia nonsense, these crusades trying to spread democracy. That's exactly what these folks did. This is the most important thing in the world. When Nixon went to China, when Trump meets with Kim Jong-un, Trump is a realist, I hope. When we opposed the Iraq war, what was the Iraq war about? It was a joke. It was ridiculous. It had nothing to do with anything. Remember when April Glasby, when and by the way, once we hate somebody, oh, that's it. Oh, that's it. Once Saddam Hussein, he's a butcher. Okay, all right. And that's it. We love bad guys. Remember Gaddafi. Gaddafi with a K, a Q, a G. This is a guy who, believe it or not, wanted to. This sealed his fate. It wasn't nationalizing oil. It's when he wanted to make Libya arable. Because as I've been talking about since day one, the next theater of war is going to be, the casus belli, is going to be water, hydro-imperialism. Well, we'll get to that later. But see, you can't sell that. If I'm on Fox News or MSDNC or whatever it is, I've got a 1-minute hit. I've got to do B-roll. I've got to have B-roll and bombs and flash and zippers and I've got to completely overwhelm you with the theater of this because you are like I guess they treat you like the 7-year-old who looks at his or her phone or watches TikTok and loves the flashing lights. And you get people who don't spend a lot of time. And what they do is they give you this jingoistic American stuff, which is wonderful, but you don't get to the real theory about it. You don't understand what's happening. You don't understand how this thing works. And the people who represent the neoconservatives, we never hear about them anymore. These were lapsed Trotskyites. These were like commies. They went crazy after the Cold War. They were Stalinists. They were commies. And if I tell people this, they'll say, what are you talking about? Do you know what it is like? And I mean this. Please don't take this the wrong way. Please. Do you know what it's like when you're the only one in the room who knows what's going on? Now, I know that sounds terrible. Did I say that? Yeah, I said that. That's exactly right. Do you know what it's like when you're saying, you don't know what's going on, do you? You don't really understand the background behind this, do you? You really don't understand this. You don't grasp this. You don't understand history. Don't forget what Tolstoy said. History would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. You don't get this. You don't grasp this. You don't know where we're going. See, all we have to do is give you a theme song, bread and circuses, some hyper militaristic something. By the way, the left is so gone. They're out of control. But let me just say before we go back to the phones, 800-848-9222. Listen to what I'm saying. Do you think the left, and I use that term, they're not even the left. Well, let's just call them the left, merely for purposes of a shortcut, just so that we can know who they are. Do you think they're going to let Trump, who's just 9% into his realm, his term, do you think they're going to let him succeed? You know and I know that Lindsey Graham waxes onanistic, and I'll leave it at that, over the notion of war with Russia. Oh my God. It's like porn to him. They're doing everything in their power. And NATO? NATO. Ask somebody, what is NATO? What is the North Atlantic Treaty? Or what? What do they do exactly? How does this work? Who are these people? What purpose does this serve? I don't know. But we believe so much in the idea of this Ruski evil. Look at the way Drago. Remember that? What's this from Rocky? Remember that? I will destroy you. There was Khrushchev, the evil empire. One of the interesting pun. One of the reasons Reagan hated them. Do you know that when he was head of the actors union, Screen Actors or what have you, there were some labor results, and some of the commies at the time, he said, threatened to cut his face up so Pretty Boy couldn't work. He never forgot that. Never forgot it. And I talk to people all the time, and they'll say things like, those communists, the Marxists, and I said, do you know what a communist is versus a socialist versus a Marxist? No, but that's a term I use. One time, and then we'll get to the phones, 800-848-922222. One time I was in a green room, and I sat there with two friends of mine. One is a hardcore, I guess you'd call him, Wall Street investor type, Republican, down the line, country club. And the other one was, I believe, a communist. Well, he's a socialist for sure, but communist, he always said, no, I'm not a member of the party. Yeah, but a communist. No, I'm not a member of the party. I used to go on a TV show with this guy named Vladimir Posner years ago. I said, are you a communist? He goes, no, I'm not a member of the party. Okay. But we use communist like it's an ideal versus a party. In any event. So there I was. It was election night, or it was during Trump's run. Both of them, the hardcore Wall Street conservative and the hardcore leftist socialist, both of them loved Trump. Both of them. The Wall Streeter loved Trump for obvious reasons, but the lefty loved Trump because he talked about the working man. There was a class struggle. He appealed to the working man. He gave people hope. When Trump was running the second time, it was the most beautiful thing. He had remember Scott, what's his name? Pressler? Is his name? In Philadelphia? I don't know where he is, but he had everyone. He had the Amish. He had the black barbers in Brooklyn. It'd be a great group. He had gays and Latinos, people who loved him. He identified. Now, I understand he has a problem getting out today, and I think with the security problems, he should stay home. But he should invite them all to the White House and not forget. And I have to go. I wish I could somehow be in some meeting with the president and say, Mr. President, do you know who your enemy is? You know who they are? The people who have sworn, quote, fealty to you. Lindsey Graham, Marco Rubio. You don't understand this. Dan Bongino, Kash Patel, their own incompetence, their fleeting. They took the investigation of Epstein, for example, and they've made a mockery of it. They're going to destroy you. Sir, we have to make sure you understand what your 5 rules are. And the first thing you have to do is keep the world out of war. Bruce and Queens, you're on the Lionel Show. The other side of midnight, they call it.
Yeah, hi. Good evening, Lionel. Listen, this whole fricas between the Soviet Union and...
there is no Soviet
Ukraine.
Union. It's called Russia, but go ahead.
Whatever.
There's a big difference,
Ukraine.
yes.
Yes, of course. I understand that. Let me go on. The point is, you consider this fact. Russia is bombing the living crap out of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
80% of Ukraine is basically rubble.
Yep.
Hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians are dead. Now, my point is this. You reach a saturation point where there ain't nothing left. Mm-hmm. So if what's left of Ukraine wants to rebuild, let's say they broker a peace deal a year from now or whatever, where are you going to get the $2 trillion to rebuild the country? You would have got another Marshall Plan?
Mm-hmm. Well, first and foremost, let me ask you this question. Who is acting at the behest or to benefit Ukraine? Who is in charge? Is it Zelensky?
No.
Who is it?
It's got to be a group of people who, like,
NATO.
are working behind Biden.
NATO.
Yeah, okay.
Victoria Nuland, the Institute for the Study of War, Jack Keane, the Kagans, Keir Starmer, Macron, the globalists. Oh, absolutely. Next, you said it. If I want to rebuild Ukraine, what do? I come in and I say, all right, I'll help you rebuild Ukraine. And I'm going to provide you with all the stuff you need. The wherewithal, the machinery, the pavers, the excavation, the whatever it is. Now you owe me. So I will take this out. I will secure the funding for my particular help with Ukraine and all of its minerals and all of its, but I will own it. It's as old as nothing comes for free. Oh, the World Bank comes in. Next thing you know, they're making a deal. This is what happened. This was the precursor. This is where Maidan came from. This is where this goes. If you don't know the history, if you don't know, it means nothing to you. It means nothing. Don't forget, history would be a wonderful thing if only it were true. We're going to go back to the phone. We're going to go to Christine and Steve and your thoughts, 800-848-9222. Ask yourself this question. Do you see where we're going? Who is in charge of this? How did this great country of ours, first of all, allow the invasion from illegals? And now we're talking about taking our precious military and material and perhaps going what? To fight in where? In Europe? For what? Where do you think this is going? Do you think we're going to sit here and say, okay, just go ahead and bomb him and we'll never be involved? Really? What happens, as I started off today, what happens if one day Putin, Russia, or somebody says, I've had enough of this. I'm gonna hit you with a tactical nuclear weapon to show you I mean business. I have had it. You don't seem to get my message. What happens then? When that happens, my friend, all bets are off. There's always competition. Great powers are always at it. The U.S. must stay out of costly foreign entanglements and wars that we have nothing to do with. Ukraine is a pawn being used by the West, and Russia reacted predictably to NATO encroachment because it said, this is what we're going to do. And this moral posturing is dangerous. I mean, what are we talking about? The U.S. led Ukraine down the primrose path, and now they're paying the price. What do? Negotiate a settlement, period. Ukraine has to cede some territory and be perhaps some, refocused rump state. Just sit there, be free. You're still not a member of NATO, and you're never going to be. Cut off this endless arms flow. Stop it. And refocus on China. What are we doing? China. That's where we need to be. That's it. It makes no sense. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. We have to stop these endless wars. This is a part. Let me ask you something. Do you have any idea how many military bases and installations the United States is currently in around the world? Do you have any idea? Any idea if I told you right now, the United States, how many? Over 750 military bases and installations around the world. 750 in over 80 countries. 120 in Europe, 50 in the Middle East, 200 in East Asia and the Pacific, 30 in Africa, 20 in Latin America, and in U.S. territories, dozens. Guam and Diego Garcia. CENTCOM, AFRICOM. In Djibouti, it's the biggest thing you've ever seen. And by the way, I'm looking up. I just happen to be looking up. Just as we are teetering, and there is this repeated framework of Cory Booker. This is what I'm seeing right now on Fox. Cory Booker and Elon Musk allegedly making Nazi signals with their hands. This is where we are. This is kindergarten. This is, I don't understand it. When are we going to grow up? What will it take? What happened to us? During Vietnam, we knew what was going on. Today, we don't know anything because we're being force fed this saccharin, this nonsense, this anodyne, and when I'm this anodyne nonsense. And what I'm saying is, stop it. Stay out of this. Focus on China. What are we doing? Christina Manhattan, you're on the Lionel Show.
Hi, Lionel. Can you hear me?
Do I fear you?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I don't. But go ahead.
Okay. What you missed here in your summary was some of us figured out what happened in 9/11, and that was described in the PNAC letter that you referenced earlier. They were looking for.
They said another Pearl Harbor.
They got it. Yes.
Now that does not mean they were responsible for 9/11. It could be.
You didn't let me finish.
Okay, then you just finish, Missy.
Okay, I will. I was here on 9/11, and I was in the subway that went
too.
underneath.
Yeah.
Obviously, that was from a subterranean explosion that everybody said occurred in the World Trade Center.
Obviously.
And they ignored it.
Obviously. Are you an expert in this?
Yes.
Okay, you're an expert in rail disasters and explosions. Now explain.
No, I'm an expert on what happened on 9/11.
No, well, no, you're an expert on what happened. You're an expert on what.
Saying that
you're an expert on what. Hold it. You're an expert on what happened in the subway, not what happened on 9/11. Now, why are the neocons involved in this? Oh, she hung up. Why are the neocons? See, this is my thing. I might be with you on this one, but listen to what I'm saying. You will never, ever, ever hear me come up with some blanket statement that says absolutely it is because of this. And the neocons did it because the Project for the New American Century said we're going to need another Pearl Harbor and aha, my ass. What are you talking about? I don't know what I'm talking about, but that's as good as it's going to get. And when the train went sideways, it was an underground explosion. Do you know anything else about that? No. Have you ever investigated this? No. But that's good enough for me. Now, if you think that's enough, you let me know. I know what you're thinking. Is it 30 past the hour? You doggone right it is. And this is the Lionel Show. Okay, back to the phones. Let's go to Steve. Steve, can you hear this annoying clicking sound? When I open up the line, do you hear that? You hear that? That is the most... listen to this, how annoying this is. Steve in Manhattan... Oh, no. From now on, why even bother? Why open up a line with this? I love a troll like everybody else. You don't understand. But this schmuck is just... It's so boring. And I'll work with you. I mean, we used to have a guy named years ago, Harmonica Man. You know, I remember this. This guy would call up and, it was funny. And that was it. 2 seconds and I dug him. Let me go back to what's happening. Let's go back to this. We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence by the military industrial complex. Do we not learn? Do we not learn? Seriously. What are we doing? It's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. If I were in charge, number one, no more blank checks to Kyiv. None. In fact, clawback. And I want all of the billions that are going to, do you know how much Zelensky's going to get? Billions. Billions. Do you know where he's from? Remember how Kolomoisky created him? What was a servant of the people? The man who played the piano with his whatever? At least portrayed as such. Does anybody remember him? Do you remember how our country stopped And we all ran over and honored this. Congress bowed before him and said, wait a minute, hold it. What are we doing? What are we doing? I have this absolute idea. We're the United States of America. We never say of America. We always say the United States. We never say that. When I saw this, I look, there's one thing. I don't care whether you're Bibi or whether you're Zelensky or whether you're Macron or anybody from that or the Pope. We never bow. We never pledge fealty to anybody but our constitutional republic. Period. End of discussion. So if I run this show, no more blank checks to Kyiv. That's it. And oh, I want right now there to be an investigation. What are the deals that Lindsey Graham made? What are the deals? When he retires, he get a back end deal? Is he on some permanent board of Raytheon? What is this man about? He and McCain went to Ukraine and said, we are with you. Next, NATO would be on a leash. And we would ask ourselves, do we even want to be a part of this? What is the purpose of this? I would have the U.S., it would pivot to rebuilding military strength. I want internal cohesion. I don't know what we're doing here. I want peace through power, not this pride and all this nonsense. We've got to end the war machine. It's a feeding frenzy. Get back to the basics. Protect America. Why are we fortifying globalist ambitions? Does this make any sense to you? Does this make any sense? Do you not understand? Do you not grasp this? How did this happen? And here's the most important thing, which I really want you to help me with. Very simple question at 800-848-922222. Do you believe that President Trump, and I'm sorry to say this, really knows what's going on? Yes or no? When the other day when he said, what's this thing with Putin? And then they said, sir, he likes the sir part. Sir, he just was hit with 700 drones. Oh, I didn't know that. How does that work? What are we doing here? Let me also ask you a question. What is happening? I only know, look, it's been 9%. 9% of his entire term has elapsed. 9%. That's it. What is going on regarding all of, and I hate to bring it up again, Epstein? This is a no-brainer. This is a no-brainer. What are you doing? What is happening with this? I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on in Ukraine. I don't understand what's going on with any of this stuff. Who's in charge of this? Now, I know we're doing some great stuff, and I know the world loves it, and I would, listen, God bless this man. Do not think for a moment that I am anything short of an absolute, I am an acolyte of the first order. But for the love of God, what are we doing? Why don't we just end just the Epstein thing? We are screaming for this. Screaming. It's simple. We can't even get that right. 800-848-9222. And another thing which I've got to understand, which people have to grasp and understand this, is listen, I'm sorry, but I cannot go along with this usual, how do I say this? All right, I'm going to tell you. And I've seen this. In 1988, kind of when I started in the official world of this, Rush Limbaugh came along. Rush Limbaugh took over like an absolute, he was the Beatles. He resurrected, he saved AM radio. Rush Limbaugh was the biggest thing anybody's ever seen. Do you remember Rush? Do you remember the lunch, the restaurants that would open for Rush rooms? Rush Limbaugh was the biggest thing. I saw it. I was there. I couldn't believe it. And everybody came out of the woodwork and they said, we can be Rush. And they started waving flags. I'm saying, that's not what Rush is about. That's not what it was about. But it's waving flags. And God bless America. And Lee Greenwood is like, wait a minute, hold it. That's nice, but that's symbology. That's semiotics. That's Those are just, trappings. What does it mean to be an American? What is the Constitution? What are we talking about? No idea. No. So what happened was, especially people said, hey, this talk radio is great. I'm going to start. And all of these people came out of the woodwork and they auditioned left and right. And you had agents and you would say, who can sound more like Rush than Rush? Who is it? And you can't, because he was real. He was genuine. It was who he was. And then offshoot of that came some other folks who said, we're going to be an obvious counter to the radical left. And it was wonderful at first. And then it sort of became a parody of itself. And then they lost its bearing. And I know what I'm talking about, because when you have the left and the right vote both advocating for war, we've lost our minds. Lost our minds. Absolutely. Right now, politics has become, our country has been this joke between two strange people. And let me also tell you something, and nobody wants to understand this. Most people voted for President Trump, not the Republican Party. They voted for him. They liked him. Can you honestly tell me what the coherent plan is of the Republican Party? Do you have any clue? Do you have any idea? I don't think there is one. I don't think there is a plan. 800-848-9222. We will continue with this thing of ours, this foray, as we delve into the issues of the day. And as I started off, my friends, from the beginning, remember, they are setting you up for some kind of false flag. There is going to be some drone attack, something, because the Lindsey Grahams and others are not going to be happy with the notion of peace. God. You know how sometimes you say a word like antipasto, used to be the Boris Karloff one. I'm not a crook. There was a word he said, God. Kumi is sick with his ability to mimic. I can't remember. I mean, I could do my Aunt Rose, but she's dead and you wouldn't know who she was. Okay, here we go. News story. Ready for this? Daily Mail. Trump administration opens bombshell investigation. Stop right there. Bombshell. When you hear bombshell, nothing's going to happen. Into aging Biden's final days in office and prolific use of auto pen that could put former president's family behind bars. I want to ask you a question. I am your fairy godfather. Fairy, I mean, if you can say a fairy, can I say that? And I'm giving you the chance. Give me the word, and I will put one person behind bars. I'll do a 4 o'clock in the morning, one of these CNN Roger Stone ninja routines. Remember that where they came out of nowhere? Remember Roger Stone? What the hell was that about? Still don't know what he did. There used to be an idea. There used to be a time in this country where, you know what they did? They arrested him. Why? Well, he killed people. Oh, okay. He's a serial killer. What did Roger Stone do? What did President Trump do? He wrote a check. No, he wrote a check. Somebody wrote a check to this Butana and then something with his that's where we are today. Okay? Who was the person that you would say, all right, I want to see this one person absolutely arrested? Imagine this. Let me just tell you imagine what this is like. Breaking news. Live from Chappaqua. Federal agents have seized or moved on the home of former Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton. She is in custody now for crimes against the United States. And you see an aerial picture of her walking with the ninja outfit. You know, the ninjas. She's cuffed behind her back. She's getting into a van, and she's driven to the Southern District of New York, kind of where, Epstein would have been. And then you see a mugshot of her, and she's arraigned and held without bail. Now stop right there. Think about this. Could you stomach that? Damn right I could stomach that. Is that beyond the pale? No. My favorite, number one, I don't know who, Fauci or Mayorkas. Mayorkas maybe not because he was kind of following orders. I know we've heard that before. But unless we see somebody arrested, who would be the person? I'm giving you one chance. Tell me why. I'm God. All right? I'm the God of hellfire, and I bring you fire. Anybody you want, arrested, charged, and convicted. What are we doing with Diddy? I don't even know. That thing has gone so off the rails. Nobody knows what the hell that story is about. Nobody. Oh, they got baby oil. What is that? I don't know. He hit his girlfriend? That's racketeering? I don't know. That was a distraction. Who are the people? I'm telling you right now, Fauci. The thing that the president has to do is Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, get off your ass and arrest somebody. I want a perp walk. I'm not saying this because I'm a real tough guy. Unless we see it, they won't know we mean business. Let me say this again to you. Let me try this again. Unless we do this, they won't know that we mean business. Does this make any sense to you? Do you follow what I'm saying? This isn't just an exaggeration. Do you understand that what this man did, if he had an auto pen, if he signed legislation, judges, if he didn't know what he was doing, this is the worst threat to our constitutional republic in I don't know how long. It makes the Woodrow Wilson story pale by comparison. How did he get away with it? And we sitting there and we know it's true. And what are we talking about? I don't know. They're still talking on Fox about Elon Musk did the Nazi salute. Oh, yeah. They bring in, bless her heart, Miranda Devine. She says, you want to hear about the Hunter laptop? No. They are laughing at us. Let me tell you about the left. They mean business. They go after the people they don't like. They remember, they impeached the president twice, our guy. They were going to bring an emoluments clause against him. They trashed the country and let it burn almost to the ground with that George Floyd nonsense. They turned their back on Antifa. They haven't lifted a finger. Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, Pam Bondi, I don't know what the hell they're doing. I swear to you, I tried. As a great Billy Jack said, I tried. What are they doing? What are we waiting for? And I'm hoping, dear Bobby Kennedy, please don't let me down. Please. So far he's doing the red dye. What is happening? Is this what you wanted? How long will it take for the president and this folk to start kicking ass and taking names? I hate to be like this. Am I the only one? I think I'm the only one who says, this is ridiculous. What is he doing? What is going on here? Name one arrest other than a couple of state judges who maybe helped out. That's it. What happened to us? What are we doing here? I don't understand it. This is not what I voted for. This is not what I had in mind. And I don't know what's happening. I don't know where I don't know where it went. 800-848-9222. I don't know what's going on. And these threats. Oh, we're going to have the Hunter Biden. Do you know what is on Hunter Biden's laptop? It's enough to have you do hard federal time, from what we understand. It's the most incredible thing. We have this thing about recording. Sometimes recording things are worse than doing it. I don't want to keep bringing up, others as well, like Anthony Weiner. But had he actually just done what he recorded, it would be easier for him. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand any of it. It makes absolutely no sense to me whatsoever. I don't get it. I don't understand it. And unless and until we see somebody actually arrested, I am telling you, we're wasting our time. I spend my time most of the time thinking to myself, why is it that I know these things and other people know these things, but nothing's happening? This woman mentioned 9/11 before. She was rather snippy, and I appreciate the fact. Do you know, when I bring this up, and I say to people, I said, do you understand that we don't even know what actually happened really regarding 9/11? They look at me and they say, oh my God, there he goes again. There he goes again. He's bringing up this, quote, conspiracy stuff. And I said, I have been talking about this. I have been for 24 years. I've been saying the same stuff. I've been to symposia. I've been to lectures. I've researched this more. And every day that goes by, my head explodes. And I want to go out into the streets and say, why don't we talk about this? Because we don't. We just don't. Did you ever have somebody in your family who was like an alcoholic? Uncle Dave or somebody. And Uncle Dave said something to the effect of, they said, well, we don't talk about him. Or he's your grandfather. We don't talk about him. Why? Well, don't bring it up. But what happened to Grandpa? Don't bring it up. What happened to 9/11? Don't. Just don't do this. I mentioned the other day that I was so thrilled that on our mother station, WABC, that the great Roger Stone interviewed Alex Jones. And the woman called up and says, how dare you interview somebody who himself dared to question whether it was Sandy Hook or whatever it is. I said, wait a minute. Do you want people to not be able to question history? And she missed the point completely because America loves the bad guy. Bob in Pennsylvania, you're on the Lionel Show.
Yeah, I'd like to get container ships, empty, and put the people on there from all these countries and notify the president of each country that we're bringing your people home. Put the plank down, let them off, and say, if you do anything to stop them getting off in your country, we level your White House to the ground. You know what it cost us for security after the Twin Towers, after the Oklahoma bombing, after all the different things that went on, and they did, the Texas Tower shooter, the Beatles,
Whitman,
Elvis Presley, Patsy Cline, Buddy Holly, the Glenn Miller Band. They're ruining our country piece by piece, thing by thing. Everything they're doing, they're destroying us from the ground up, and we're doing zero. That's an invasion. With people coming across the borders, that's an invasion. That's an act of war. The virus was an act of war.
Don't you think, and Bob, I like your style. Don't you ask yourself, what is it that they're missing? Do you think, you mentioned Oklahoma City.
Oklahoma bomber. How did you get that truck and all that manure and stuff together to make that bomb?
Well,
and how did he get in that spot in front of that building?
You know what's interesting about that? Whenever that comes up, and I'm glad you brought that. Do you remember John Doe number 2? Remember the vanishing accomplice? Remember this one? Whenever I bring this up, witnesses swore that they saw Timothy McVeigh with another guy, some muscular, foreign-looking guy labeled John Doe number 2. And the FBI was pretty, serious in looking for him, and then suddenly denied he existed. Just like that. Even former FBI agents said this guy was real and the cover-up was deliberate. And then there were multiple explosions. Now, I don't want to go through this, but it shows you again, America doesn't even know the facts of the case. And if you go to any of the news outlets and say, hey, would you investigate this? And say, hell no, we're not going to do that because we like the official narrative. Gary in Inwood, you're on the Lionel Show.
Good morning. I have a suggestion for you. For all that you don't understand, for all your confusion and what you don't get, suggestion, talk to Bill O'Reilly. He'll clear up everything for you. Crystallize everything.
Do you think that what I am saying is confusion because I don't understand the issues, or I don't understand why nothing's being done about it?
No, you don't understand the issues. I think you're very confused.
Give me an example.
I just did.
No,
I
give
think
me an
Bill
example
O'Reilly-
of what. Give me an
Listen to
example
me.
of what I don't
Bill
understand.
O'Reilly will clear
Give
everything
me
up
an
for you.
example
That's all
of
you
what.
have to do.
Give me an example
Good night
of
now.
what. Give me an example of what. Give me an example. I love that one. You know, one time years ago, I was on the Bill O'Reilly show. And Bill O'Reilly was very upset with the fact that when there was I think it was the Winter Olympics, and we wanted to bring a flag, an American flag that flew over 9/11 or something, and wanted to fly that. And the Olympic, if I recall, this is a while back, the Olympic committee said, no, you can't do that because that's a political issue, a political story. And Bill said, what do you mean a political? This is 9/11. What are you talking about? So I was all called on or invited last time I was ever on your show. But anyway, so I said, well, you understand the rules, right? He said, yes. He said, but that's 9/11. I said, yeah, but it's a political. No, it's not. It's 9/11. So let me ask you a question. Let's assume that the Winter Olympics was in Japan, and they wanted to fly a flag that was in Hiroshima at the time of the dropping of the atomic bomb. Would you see any problem with that? Well, I said, but it's Hiroshima. Yeah, but do you think maybe somebody would say, you know what? I know we're not crazy about that, but there's a different story. What about Ireland? Imagine Ireland. Imagine it's in Ireland or the UK, and somebody wanted to fly a flag that draped, let's say, the coffin of an IRA gunman or something, and you would say, whoa, wait a minute, hold it. But that's the IRA. And I remember at the time thinking to myself, by the way, he's very good at what he did by virtue of his countenance. And by the way, Bill has been, like many others, the key to his success is he is either a heel or a baby face, depending upon your particular vantage point. And by the way, I'm a big fan of his. But I'll never forget this. And you see, the answer is blowing in the wind. No, the answer, if you're going to be a political person, is do not see both sides. You will have absolutely no success if you see both sides. You don't. You can't. You can't do this. Now, coming up, I want to bring something to your attention. And for the next hour, I'm going to try something, and this could be one of the most fascinating stories ever, or a disaster the likes of which you have never even or could ever contemplate. I want to talk to you about olfactory horrors. And you might ask yourself, why? I will explain this to you. Because something happened to me the other day which inspired me to remember an old topic I talked about one time that turned out to be one of the greats. Stand by. My friends, I want to ask you a very simple question. Do you know, and I've been thinking about this last night, do you know that last night I was absolutely mesmerized over the fact that there was still, you're not going to believe this, that there was still this, ad out that provided for people who were not bathing. Now, I know you're going to say to yourself, what does that have to do with anything? And they're not, they had this ad. I don't know what it was. There was something called Lumi or something years ago. And I couldn't understand, why would you not want to bathe? Why is it that people say, no, you don't need to because you use this stuff and it covers up masking, whatever it is. Okay, fine. And I asked myself the question, aren't smells important? Aren't olfactory references important? But moreover than that, how is it that we work? This is important. How is it that we work around this? Let me give you an example. The smells that we have, which are the most important, which are the most critical, are things that sometimes hit us beautifully. For example, what is the smell that you find to be the most beautiful? When you talk about things like, for example, rain, when it's about to rain, this petrichor, geosmin, this, how does this work? Why is it? It's produced by soil-dwelling bacteria. It's triggered when rain hits dry earth, and you can smell it in 1 part per trillion. And it's this thing which we still respond to positively. Why does fresh cut grass affect us positively? Did some research. Green leaf volatiles, GLVs. Like, of course, my favorite, cis-3-hexanol. By the way, cis versus trans. In stereoisomers, cis versus trans, stereoisomers. Cisgender, transgender, you got how that works? We love it because it does something about, I don't know, territory, youth, baby smells. Why does a baby, what is this thing about a baby smell? It's lactones, aldehydes, fatty acids. We don't know what it is. Certain flowers, jasmine, lavender, aromatherapy, cedar, pine, earthy stuff, garlic. When garlic is cooking, what is that? Why do we respond to it? Bread, bakeries. For me, paint, gasoline sometimes, tire stores, certain plastics. Why do we find certain smells incredible? Why? Doing some research. The olfactory bulb connects directly to the amygdala and the hippocampus. And it shows, when it produces emotion and memory, and it does something so, there's a reason for this. It's raw, it's emotional, it's associative, there's survival. Dogs can smell when somebody has an onset of a what am I trying to say? Of a seizure. They can smell things. Smells fascinate me. It's olfactory memory. And then the opposite. And I'm going to ask you a question. And I'm going to need your help with this one. And I must give you all of the specifics ahead of time, which are the most important. What are the worst things you have ever come into contact with? Now, not the usual, not the fetid, not the feculent, not whatever. No. But things that you will never forget. Let me give you an example of something. I did this one time. I did this topic 20 years ago, I don't even know, 30 years ago. It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my life. Because a lot of people said, I don't really know about Zelensky. I don't really know about Ukraine. I don't really know about any of this stuff. But I do remember something. There was a guy one time who said, a fellow caller, who said, have you ever changed a grease trap at a restaurant? Just like that. It's the worst smell. And I was thinking, I'm connecting with it. And it didn't smell like anything, but just the way he said it. I remember one time being on a platform, on a subway platform. And I was with my old newsman, Bruce Anderson, at WABC years ago. And as I was standing there, this fellow was marching up. And I noticed as he passed people, they started flailing their hands around, like waving, and I didn't understand what they were doing. I didn't get it. I thought, what are they doing? It's like they were trying to wave away a bug or something. But what they were doing, they were waving away or trying to wave away the smell, the horror, the funk of this urchin. And I didn't know this at first. And he walked by me. And it hit me. And to this day, I will tell you, and I've seen some stuff before, been around. We've been my share, like others, of morgues and whatever. But it's really no different than anything you've seen before. We've all kind of smelled that before. Putrescence. Nothing like this ever hit me. And it was not an identifiable, articulable smell. I had never smelled it before. It was almost sweet, but it engaged my soul. It got into my nose, into my brain, and it wouldn't let go. I had a bottle, or as people say, a bottle. I had a bottle of cologne I had just purchased. And it was rather, well, not expensive, but it wasn't cheap. And I sprayed it just to kind of counteract this thing. And it was incredible. I thought I'd never, ever, ever, ever forget it. Well, years and years and decades went by. The other day, I happened to be somewhere, and someone walked by, or there was a person there, and it was, I can't explain it. And I said, that's it. I will never forget that. A surgeon friend of mine said that when you are involved in surgeries, you always must be aware of smells. When you nick a bowel, when there's blood, when there's certain smells that signal something, and we're losing that ability. Years ago, Dr. Michael Bodden, who is a friend of mine, said most of the time when people see an autopsy, what is the most problematic isn't necessarily the sight of it, though that is certainly a part of it, but it's the smell. And what we're doing is we're losing this ability because we never talk about it. We cover things up. We try to dissuade it, to redirect it, rather. And the thing which is the most important, the most critical, is to appreciate the fact that there is there for a reason, that nature put this in for us to remember this. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. And this thing could either be great or a disaster. I'm telling you right now, this is either great, and especially at this time on this side of midnight, when people are driving about, out and about, cops, first responders, firemen, garbage men, people, mothers, lawyers, people who've just lived from all over the country. Two things that we love to talk about. The smell that makes you just, your heart is elevated. The smell that you just love. But more importantly, the smell that sears your soul, that you will never forget. Something so horrid, so terrible. Things are very strange. Did you know that when you're in Florida, where I'm from, there's a place called Frostproof. Frostproof is where they process oranges for orange juice. There is a smell of this processed pulp that is so horrible. It doesn't make you sick, but it's everywhere, and you can't get away from it. And it puts you in a bad mood. If you think aromatherapy works, which I think it does, I think there's something to that. This is the opposite. So that's where we're going to do. So like I said, let me just tell you this much. This one's up to you. I sort of set this up because it's one of those subjects that fascinates me. I remember talking about some of my favorite moments of talk radio was asking people to describe the worst thing they've ever seen. The worst thing, the closest they ever come to death. We'll get to that eventually. But it depends upon you. And sometimes things just work perfectly. So I'm going to throw that out and maybe have you throw up at the same time. But I'm going to throw this out. The notion of smell. And I love to talk about things that are great. And most of us would agree. But I am absolutely fascinated by that which we have experienced, which we find beyond horrible. And like I said, it's up to you. I'll give it 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I'm not going to push it because I can only do so much. This is you, my friend. This is you. And this is when talk radio can be the greatest thing anybody has ever seen, because there's a lot of people out there listening who say, you know what? I really don't know anything about Ukraine. I don't care about it. I don't know who this guy is elected. I don't tariffs. But I do remember this. It was during war, or it was a time in surgery, or it was a time I saw this, or there was this guy next door. There was this horrible event in my life. 800-848-9222. Now, our screener, the beloved Mr. Riffraff, is making a ship in a bottle right now. It's been pretty easy this evening. He's working on the mainsail rigging. He's got forceps. And he put his feet up and he figures, tonight's going to be easy. I'm not going to take a lot of calls. I'd like to destroy that idea by having you call up with the most rancid, horrible, disgusting thing you have ever come across in your life. And it's up to you. Like I said, if it doesn't work, I take full responsibility. But something tells me, you have been wanting to tell this story forever. 800-848-9222. We'll give it a shot. But I'm telling you this time, it's up to you. Do you know what it's like to explain a smell? And please, don't say it smells like, the usual. No. Use the mosaic of the mother tongue. Lucy in Suffolk, Virginia, WTAR. You're on the Lionel Show.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning. This is Lucy. I was a delivery room nurse, and the lady came in. She was term. The baby was due, but she didn't realize it had been dead for a day or two.
Oh no!
I was a smell. I can still remember the room we were in. And the other thing is, some people are much more sensitive.
Really?
Smells. My daughter-in-law can come in here and she'll say, "I smell something, Grandma." I thought, I can't smell it. I think as you age, you lose your.
You know what?
Your
Maybe
sense.
yes, and also old people smell. And believe it or not,
Well,
one of the reasons is, believe it or not, teeth, bridge work. There is something to be said. Sometimes, remember, you would say an old person's house. One time, we had a relative, and somebody described her house as either that of, listen to this, an old catcher's mitt or an old dictionary. Now, right now, do you see that just now I said this to you, Blaze? When I said an old catcher's mitt, you remember that, right? Now, can you smell that? Can you remember that? What are you remembering? You're not remembering the smell, but there's a part of your brain where you're saying, "Oh, I know what that is." Think of garlic frying. Can you smell that? Yes. Where is it? I find that fascinating. You were going to say something profound?
Well, the catcher's mitt, it just smells like old leather,
right?
And the stuff that you'd put in there to soften up the glove, that smell that never goes away, that you will always remember. Every time you picked up your glove, you smelled that. So when you describe an old person's house as smelling like that, you're thinking about walking into grandma's house with like the purple carpeting, with some figurines on the side, some doily on a table with the coffee flavored candy in the dish. But now I smell catcher's mitt.
Yeah, right, exactly.
So you got to get the full view.
And old dictionary. Now, this is a good one. This is good for all of you Decubitus fans. Here's Kathy. Kathy in New Jersey. Kathy, you're on the Lionel Show. Make us wince, Kathy. Make us sick.
Can I give you two good ones first?
Oh, please.
The smell of freshly brewed coffee.
Oh, yes.
And the smell of sun in your hair, like if you have long hair.
Oh.
And the smell of sun in the hair. I love that.
Wow. I just for a second, that would be such a wonderful perfume smell. Sun in the hair. Remember that stuff years ago called, "Gee, your hair smells terrific." It was a shampoo.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
okay,
man.
now that we got the nice stuff out of the way, Kathy, make us sick.
Make you sick. Okay. So I'm a retired nurse.
Say no more. Right off the bat. See, right off the just when you hear this, God bless nurses. I'll bet you came in anyway.
I came in wanting to help people. My friend said, if you want to help people, join the Peace Corps. Don't go into nursing if you want to help people. So anyway, we go into this room, and I think it was, I think I was still in school because I had somebody with me.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a woman on her side. She said, well, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to, she's got a sore. And,
you mean a decubitus ulcer, like a bed sore?
Like I have never seen in my life.
Really?
So they took off the covering, and you know what they do with the decubitus? They pack it sometimes, like with a gauze with some medicine in it.
Right.
So she takes the bandage off, and then she starts pulling out this gauze.
Mm-hmm.
And this sore, I have never seen or smelled anything like this in my life. It went down to the hip bone. You could actually see the hip bone, and the smell was so bad. I mean, I ran to the sink. I didn't throw up, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I ran to the sink, and, you know, I don't remember much after that. But it was the most
sorry.
horrible.
I don't mean to laugh at that, but had you ever experienced something since?
Yes, I've had people had bed sores that were bad, but never as deep as this.
Right.
I mean, the deepness, you could see the hip bone. And I'm
so not only is it a visual thing, but also, have you ever noticed, or ask yourself the question, when certain things involve sulfur-based compounds like acetone and other, there is something that is in your hardwired in you to make you stay away from that, which is an alarm for something is wrong.
Yes.
Your brain could have just as easily switched that and found that succulent or pleasure. Like, why is a rose pleasant? Maybe the same reason why bugs find it pleasant, in order to I guess, inspire, pollination and that sort of thing. I guess I'm trying to say, I always want to go down to the reason for this. There's something to be said.
Yes, there's something about the rotting of the muscle and the flesh. I mean, you know, there's a reason why this is all open. I mean, this is not in good condition.
Not at all.
I've been in surgeries where that smell makes me sick too. Like when I was a student, when they cut the skin, they cauterize it. So they're burning it. So you're smelling burning flesh. Yeah,
Kathy,
I didn't have a big, yes.
I want to thank you for this. And I want to thank you.
Welcome.
And I also want to tell you, we have these wonderful people that we work with, and they say, you know, if ever you have a nice moment, kind of like a benchmark or a moment of your show, you might want to send it to us. Something that we can send to perhaps new, I don't know, stations and whatever. Would you mark this, please? Would you have the bed sore? Send that down to them and just say, with love, the boys from the Lionel Show. What time is it? It's 30 past the hour on the Lionel Show, also known as The Other Side of Midnight. Wasn't that wonderful? Just, again, maybe you're missing the point. He's describing it and just saying it was awful. That's it. It's beautiful. Gerard in St. Louis Mo, KMOX, you're on the Lionel Show. What is this noise?
Hey, enjoying your show quite a bit.
Well, thank you. Quite a bit.
I got two things.
Okay.
One real fast, and the second one's more interesting. But first one is chlorine pools. They're wonderful. I love the smell of chlorine.
In the morning.
It cleans you.
Yes.
You know, and it wounds your mosquito bites and heals. You know, I do a lot of fishing and I get to swim in the pool. But at any rate, that's kind of the side note. The one I was calling you about. And the other thing is, if you ever swim in a saltwater pool, when you come out of water, I remember the first time I did, I was in California, and I thought I had BO. I said, how can I have BO? Because it looks the same. But I kept coming out of water, and I would smell my armpits. It's like, what is that? And then I realized it was salt water. So I love chlorine anyway. I'll just say that.
Well, thank you, Gerard.
Tough on your hair. It's tough on your hair. But other than that,
well, thank you,
I don't
sir.
have no hair no more, so it don't matter. But here's
Okay.
some more interesting.
That's what I want to hear. Here we go. Here we go. Brace yourself.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Brace yourself.
Okay. Osage apples. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but I'm sure there are other places. But we have them in Missouri.
No, what are they,
big,
sir?
They're like big green, about the size of a coconut, maybe a little smaller. But they drop a certain time of the year, and I was on this old railroad trail where they took the rails out and they cut, 6 foot in on either side. And I was walking on that, and I could smell this real strong green-like smell. And I stopped and just took a big whiff of it in because it smelled good. And I thought, where do I remember that from? And then it came to me. And now when I think of my grandfather, I think of that because I used to cut his grass, from about 10 to 14, and he had one of them trees in his backyard, and I'd run him over. And then I'd smell it.
And that...
But at any rate, it's kind of a good memory. For
yes.
me.
And remember, Gerard, this is... These scents are olfactory. You never forget them. I was doing a little bit of research for some of the best smells that are considered awful. Thioacetone, by the way, is a sulfur-based compound from the acetone family. One time, a single drop evacuated an entire German city block in 1889. I don't know what this is. It smells like some horrible stuff. It's so potent it caused vomiting and unconsciousness at 500 yards. Just think about this. Decomposing body, cadaverine, putrescine, indole, skatole. The human brain instinctively recoils at this. It signals danger, disease, death. The smell that never leaves. Durian fruit, native to Southeast Asia, banned on public transport. I love that. It smells like, listen to this. This is the description. Rotten meat, gym socks, gas leaks, and sweet custard. Some love it. Most flee the scene. Guess what this is? Vomitoxin. I'm going to just leave this one out. It's found in hoarding houses and sewage backups. Chemical profile is butyric acid, isovaleric acid, ammonia, and methane. They call it death's breath. I had an aunt who was similar to this. Skunk spray, thiols. You can smell it in 1 part per billion. Have you ever smelled a skunk hit by a car? It's like something you will never forget. Anthropological sewer gas, ancient latrines found in archaeological digs and medieval city excavations. Burned hair and flesh occurs during industrial accidents or cremations. Bad breath, extreme halitosis, caused by anaerobic bacteria related to hydrogen sulfide and methyl mercaptan. Dead seals and beached whales. This is decaying. This is from building up of internal gas pressure. Butyric acid from rancid butter and vomitus or emesis. The military stink bomb. This is a wonderful and anyway, mercaptan. Let me just leave this before we forget. And I know riffraff, it's a very important concern for you. Sometimes when some people eat asparagus, some things happen. Some things magical. Some things rather rancid. The reason for that is a substance called mercaptan. Just remember that. Ask for it by name. Go into a CVS, into the perfume section, and ask if they have mercaptan. Okay? Don in Floral Park. You're on the Lionel Show.
Hey, Lionel. It's tough to follow that.
Thank you.
But I have one for you.
Mm-hmm.
I was like 17, 18 years old. I was sleeping in front of my house out in Long Island. A motorcycle came by, and he banged into a parked car doing about, 60 miles an hour. And he all of a sudden I looked outside and there was flames coming up, small flames from, and guys from the fathers from the houses ran out. We all ran. I ran out, and this guy was underneath the motorcycle and he was on fire. So Mr. Pearsall, I remember this, never forget this. He put his hands on the motorcycle, and he actually pulled it off. And he ended up getting blisters all over his motorcycle. He yelled for his kid to get the fire extinguisher, and we fire extinguished the guy off. So this is when the smell comes in.
Okay.
I ran inside, and I ran inside to get a blanket because this guy looked black on the street, and I threw the blanket over him. And it was one of my mother's favorite bedspreads. When finally the ambulance came, by the way, the guy actually lived. He was in the hospital about 6 months.
God bless him. Good.
And yeah, I actually saw him again one time. 2 years later, he could hardly walk. He had one head was stuck to his shoulder. I don't know. And it smelled so bad. We took the blanket off, and we had to throw it out because it smelled of burnt skin. It was just something I'll never forget. It was something so I never smelled it before. But,
Isn't that something? It was so putrescent, and you responded so negatively. But here's the question I have: your brain could have just switched it. Your brain could have said, "Oh no, this is pleasant." By the way, speaking of which, this is not a story. Well, this is not about smells, but you mentioned seeing an accident. I heard of a case one time. There was a police officer I knew who had a ride-along, and he hated ride-alongs, but he was very good and instructional, and was good for PR. So he's got some civilian in the car with him. It was a ride-along. He hated him because he was afraid he couldn't beat somebody up or whatever. This is before cameras. So apparently they said, we have a bad collision. This is really bad. A kid was hit on a bike, and it doesn't look good. So the ride-along person hears this. He says, I've got to see this. And he says, no. I'm not going to be responsible for this. No, you've never seen something like this before. He says, no, please. He says, all right, I'm warning you. You want to ride along? You want to see what it's like to be a cop? Here, I'll show you. And sure enough, there was this accident. Bike was all bent out of shape, and this poor kid covered with what appeared to be some red something, obviously it looked like blood, but something white and viscous. They never saw this before. And it was odd. Even the cops were saying, what is this? And the kid looked, gone, dead. But lo and behold, he was alive. He was fine. And the kid woke up, looked at this red, gooey, red, white, gelatinous, blah, and said, my pie. My mother's going to kill me. And he was bringing home a pizza. And when he turned over, and I thought, I'll tell you another one. And I'll leave it at that. This is another one, too. Again, not kind of in the smell, and I love this story. My friend who worked for NYPD was a rookie, and they got a call to a stinker. Okay? And he said, somebody who apparently had either died or whatever. So they walked in, he said, and I love when somebody says, we didn't even get up the stairs. And how people who live there, some didn't notice it. It was the weirdest thing. Some people could smell it, some people can't. Anyway, they walked in, and sure enough, this fellow had been there. And the veteran recognized that by virtue of his abdomen, which is distended, it looked as though he was going to burst.
Wow. So
he turns to my friend, the rookie, and says, give me your billy club. And he had the old wooden, this was a while back. He says, okay. And somehow they had cord or wood or something. And the veteran measured off a good, 7-8 feet of cord, of rope. He opened the door, tied the billy club to the end of it, swung it left, right, got a nice little arc, let it go towards the direction of this bilious, distended corpse, closed the door, and they heard this, just a noise like that. When he opened up the door, he couldn't even describe it. I said, this is one of the best stories ever because my mind created like Alfred Hitchcock. It creates, it fills in the blanks. And I love the ability of how we have lost the ability to explain, and how when you said this, because I'm thinking flesh, but also a blanket and the combinations, and it's beautiful. And Don, I thank you for that.
Okay.
All right. And I hope, didn't mean to, I hope people right now are not eating something that they initially enjoyed. Joan in New Jersey, you're on the Lionel Show.
Yes, a dog's paw.
Thank you very much. That was Joan in New Jersey. A dog's paw is I'm sorry. Work with me on that. What about it?
You've never smelled a dog's paw?
I have never. I can tell you unequivocally. I have never
I'm sure
smelled.
there are many people out there that have, and it evokes a feeling I can't even describe.
I'm not even sure if it's bad. Is it a bad?
No, it's not bad at all. It's beyond. It's wonderful, but I can't explain it.
Wait a minute. Hold it. A paw of a dog, and you would have to put the paw up to your nose, maybe open up the pads or whatever, and take a nice snort of it. And you're saying this is good?
Yes. I want to hear from other people out there that have smelled this and think it's wonderful.
Jonah, thank you. By the way, flag that one. Send that to sales, please. Love Lionel. A dog's that is the most disturbing call I've received. I don't even understand it. Why would that be good? Riff Raff is retching right now as we speak.
I've smelled my dog's paw.
How about his maw?
It just smells like dog.
Yeah,
it doesn't smell bad.
I don't.
Maybe I think she's thinking like sort of like almost the equivalent of a puppy smell or a baby smell, smelling the paw. But it's not something that I would say, oh, that's something that I really remember.
Now imagine right now, hypothetically, there's a person at LaGuardia or wherever getting their rental car. They're new to New York. They get in, they turn it on. Our station is on. And just then they're listening and they're staring at the radio saying, what the is this? And just then they careen out of control and are hit by a semi and die in a fiery death. And that smell is even worse also. I love this. Kevin in New Jersey. Kevin, you're on the Lionel Show.
Hey, Lionel, can I talk about the good smell first?
Please do.
Okay, I'm 17 years old. I'm dating a girl, pretty girl.
Now be careful.
She wears this.
Work with me.
All right.
Okay. Work with me on this. Okay, you're scaring me.
She's got this perfume that she wears, and it's a nice smell. It's a nice perfume, whatever. But I think it was just the smell of her that she moved away. She moved all the way to California. Never saw her again. So I never knew what perfume it was, but I loved the smell. It reminded me of her. About 30 years later, I'm in Washington Square Park, and I smell it. It's the same smell. I'm like, oh my God! I have to find out what it. There was about 5 or 6 women there. I didn't know which one. I asked every one of them. They all looked at me like I'm nuts. Now you're in New York, and none of them would even tell me. So I never found. I wanted to get it actually and get it from my wife. That's how much I enjoyed that smell. I loved it so much.
There was something
30 years.
There was something years ago called Heaven Sent. I think it was by Yardley, and I remember. I don't know where I smelled it. I thought this is great, and then just gone. Remember when Musk, like Jovan Musk, and then Paco Rabanne and Brute British Sterling, High Karate, but the Musk, there was a Jovan, and then English Leather. I used this stuff when I was a kid, called the Baron. And it was this most unique smell. And then when your particular chemistry mixes with it. Have you ever smelled I worked one time with a woman years ago whose perfume was so rancid. I responded so viscerally. And I tried to ask somebody, I said, have you noticed? He goes, oh yes, that smells nice. And I thought, I don't understand. It made me red. I didn't want to say anything because she apparently liked it. How about people who douse themselves with a cologne? And also, when the cologne mixes with sweat and you put together these weird pheromones, it's this new synthesis of a smell that's just, I'm sorry, I'm waxing psychotic. Forgive me, Kevin. I just walked, I just drifted off for a moment. Now, let's talk about that now.
People that, okay, I'm making a delivery. I'm in Queens years ago. And I'm in the office, and I'm smelling this really, really bad smell. And I didn't want to say anything to anybody in there because I'm like, yeah, maybe it's one of them. I don't want to offend them. But it was real, real bad. So I just had to. After a while, I was like, I can't take it anymore. I said, what is that smell? By the name, I couldn't tell. We're a natural casing company. I'm like, what the heck is that? They're like, sausages, hot dogs. I'm like, oh, my God, you're kidding me. That's what that is? The guy goes, yeah, come here. I'll take you out into the plant. So he takes me out. Oh, my God. I almost became a vegetarian after that. I didn't eat sausage probably for 10 years after
but it's
that.
But you're talking about intestine. Natural casing is an intestine.
It's intestines, and they had them stretched out over all these tables and machines, and it was like miles of intestines. It was, but like anything else, I love sausage and I love hot dogs now. But for 10 years after that, the smell was that bad.
But you know that what a great song there'll be, Miles of Intestines. I mean, by Marty Robbins song. There's something to be. I got to tell you this one, Kevin. Sometimes I like when somebody tells a story and just stops at the right place. When I did this story for the topic for the very first time, this guy called up. He said, I'm a veterinarian. Now, right off the bat, you stop and you're thinking, this is going to be good. And he said, I went to put a horse down. And I always love that expression. What do you do? Call him and say, hey, sway back. Hey, nag. Like putting him down. And this is what he said. I'll never forget this. This was the pacing. It was a vaginal tumor of the horse.
Oh.
And I was about 10 feet away, and it hit me. That's it. That's all he said. It wasn't particularly expressive. It didn't really fill in the blanks. But my brain filled in this. It's just like what I told you before. Alfred Hitchcock, during Psycho, never showed you anything. It's a shower curtain and nobody could, black and white. But your ability to say, wow, that moment. I've heard about people in war, people who've come to battle scenes. And I'll never forget this veteran years ago. He says, have you ever smelled a gut wound? And I thought, no, was like 12 and whatever. He said, and that's it. And it was just one of those things, Kevin, where I thought, it's fascinating to me. Are we demented? Do you feel a certain degree of fascination over this olfactory horror? Or am I demented? You can tell me. It's all right. I can tell you.
No, you're not demented at all because you can, like you said, if somebody tells the story right, you can smell it yourself. It brings you right there.
And there's so little that is said. If I wrote down, if I had a court reporter write down what they said, there's nothing about it that's that fascinating. But the way you said it, Kevin, I will never think the same about casings ever again. I thank you for that. Our number is 800-848-9222. More coming up as we delve into the depths of the dank and the demented. And she had like a white, I said, this woman does this for a living. And I'll bet you she's never missed like a day of work. And she probably shows up on time. And some kid quits McDonald's because he doesn't like the hours. It's like, this woman smells pits all day. And there's no excuse for somebody not to work. So I wrote my mother that. I said, doesn't that make sense? She says, yes. And it's just, that's your job. And imagine you sat down. Hi, how are you? My name, yes, Nature Boy, Matt Blaze, yes. Okay. What does the job entail? I'm going to sniff what? Armpits. Wait. What? Armpits. You mean, And oh yes, and I'm here to see if if deodorants work. And how many armpits will I sniff during the day? Between 8 and 1,200. Wait a minute. What are the do you have dental? I mean, somebody said, "I'll do it. I'll work. This is not a problem." And became probably one of the best at her craft, smelling axillary, what have you. By the way, somewhere at the top of the line, it's so funny. Our good friend Joaquin. By the way, Joaquin, I know you wanted to talk about Zelensky, but not now. Not now.
Not now.
Okay.
I got the.
I
got
love
the
you,
smell
man.
for you.
All right.
I got the smell for you.
Oh, you can pivot. You can pivot.
yes,
I like that. Okay,
yes,
go ahead.
can. All right. First of all, I was not feeling too good today. Really down in the dumps, and then I got a picture of you huffing gasoline as you're filling up your stretch Yugo.
Yes.
But anyway, picture this. So once upon a time, in my background, there was a roll-off garbage compactor from the fish market.
Oh, stop right there. See, you could just say thank you and good night. That you just explained it all, but go ahead.
Oh, it gets better. It gets even better than that. So that truck broke down, and it sat in July for about 7 days before anybody was able to do anything with it. And it wound up going to the transfer station of my boss. He owned the transfer station and the trucks transfer station. So guess whose trailer that went on? It went on mine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, have you ever smelled this stuff? It's like a cherry-scented Speedy Dry. They use this to try and mask odors.
Mm-hmm.
Well, after they loaded the trailer, of course, they spread this all over the top of the trailer. So, of course, I go to leave from Long Island to go out to Pennsylvania to the landfill. And I'm going across the Cross Bronx at night, and I get into the GW Bridge, and I'm driving a very fast Peterbilt. And I hear some guys on the radio go, "Oh, my God, that truck smells so bad. We got to get around him." I said, "Boys," I said, "I'm sorry, man." I said, "This truck is faster than yours. Good luck." And they're like, "Oh, my God, he's right." Well, I got out to the transfer station in Pennsylvania, and I got up, and they come running out of the scale house. "You got to get that truck out of here right now." And I was like, "What? Wait. This is before cell phones." I said, "You got to give me time to call my boss." So I called my boss, and he says, "All right, start heading up to Scranton." And so when I turned around to leave, they said, "Listen, we're giving you an escort out of town to make sure that you don't stop anywhere for coffee or for anything, because we're already getting enough problems up here from complaints, about the odors from the landfill."
Dear God.
This truck was, just imagine, of course, there's all compacted stuff in there, garbage, of course. A lot of times you get water seeping out of the trailer, so I was leaving a stream of this stuff wherever I went.
But with cherry,
Well, that makes it even worse.
That's what I'm saying. There's a dissonance. Years ago, when I was in Florida, we had next to the county jail, there was a rendering plant, and I said, "What is a render?" I didn't know what that was, and it's where they take animal carcasses and fat and tissue and whatever, and they boil it, and they, I guess, turn it into some penguin, something or other. And this, I remember, it wasn't bad per se, but it just fascinated me because in my mind I was breaking it down bit by bit. I'm not going to stop right now. I'm not going to stop because I'm having so much fun. Not only that, it's so great to see Riff Raff put down his ship in the bottle and answer some calls. And the calls, they are coming. This is Lionel with you, discussing the worst, the most horrible, the most odoriferous funk you've experienced in your life and lived to tell about it. You ever seen anything like this? Just now I was walking down the hallway and I just turned to Dr. Atwood and he said, a couple of things to remember. And he reminded me of it. When you've gone to a grandmother's house, the smell of mothballs. You ever smell mothballs, Matt? Who held the wings? Anyway, it's an old joke. It's an awful joke. How about, I remember my grandmother had cedar inside the closets and mothballs together. I don't know why that just wasn't. I think it was a naphthol or naphthalene. I think it was that. Another, on a terrible note, after 9/11. There was a smell. Everywhere I went, it smelled like burned. You know when an electric motor burns out? That electric burn smell? I was in an elevator in my building and I thought, oh, there's something wrong with it. No, it was the scent. Whatever this was, everywhere you went, it was that smell. And you'll never forget it as long as you live. It's fascinating to me. And how we also, I do believe, maybe we respond or should respond to pheromones, to, I don't know, because we're always cleaning stuff, except the people who don't bathe. When I was a prosecutor, young, I had a case involving it was a burglary. Make a long story short, I had to file the case, and the deputy, they found the guy with a dog. And he called me at the time, and this is in Florida. He said, "You mind if I'll talk to you about the case to file it, but I've got to bring the dog with me. I can't leave the dog in the car." I said, "Of course." So the dog, and we had these little tiny offices. So the guy brings his dog, and it was a German Shepherd, and the smell of this dog, I said, "God." I said, no respect. I said, "But you ever wash this thing?" He said, "What?" He looked at me like, "What?" He said, "It's a tracker." I said, "What the hell's that to do with it?" He said, "No, the dog will use its own scent. It'll rub up against a tree or something to let it know it's been there so it'll avoid going in circles." I said, "Oh, I didn't know that." Well, listen to this. The young girl, he had this dog at the time, and they were thinking about maybe getting rid of it. It was a tracking dog. It wasn't an attack dog, but just for tracking and what have you. And he was thinking, maybe it's time to retire old, Fido. And I'll never forget, it was a young girl, African-American family, but this little girl was it was like a bunk bed. This guy came through the window. It was with somebody they knew because he knew where to go, which room. Anyway, he came in through the window, did some terrible things to her, and then left. But he brushed against the drape on his way out. So they called this deputy and the dog. So the dog, now listen to this. The dog smelled each of the family members, said, "Okay, we're not looking for them, obviously, because they're right there. Okay." And then they took the dog to the drape and in essence said, "That's the one we're looking for." The dog said, "Got it." They went out. I don't know how long. It was at night. I'll never forget the way the guy described it. He says, "I took my flashlight because each dog has its own sign. Sometimes they'll bark. This one stood up, sat in this very rigid posture. And he knew something that the bad guy was identified. He takes out his flashlight. He extends it. He extends the flashlight out in case somebody starts shooting. They'll shoot at the light and it'll be out there." So he looks and he sees nothing. He looks at the dog like, "Come on, Fido, come on, man. Are you really that? I think you've seen your last day. I think it's true." So he kind of yanked the chain or did whatever he did to signal to the dog, "It's time for us to look." Again, the dog stood up straight, and it was incredible. He said, "Okay, look." And just then, these leaves kind of moved. And sure enough, the bad guy stood up and said, "Gotcha," or "Got me," or whatever it was. And he said, "I know this is hard for you to understand," but the dog looked at me with a look of, "Uh-huh, yeah, you don't have it, huh?" This dog tracked this person for over a mile at night in the dark, and all it had was a little sniff from a drape and eliminated their. I mean, this just. I thought about that I don't want to say every day of my life, but I think how does this work? It's incredible. Smells. And do we have that ability? Do we have that sense? Or do we always cover things up and try to eliminate from our zone of experience certain scents and the like? So we're talking about good things, but mostly bad things we've smelled or encountered, or something that made an impression on us. Stephen Bed-Stuy, you're on the Lionel Show.
Good morning. Happy birthday, Leo Gorsi, by the way, Muggs Mahoney.
Really?
But, yes. I have a really bad smell. My fraternity, we used to make fake, let's say, poop out of Limburger cheese and ketchup and Worcestershire sauce and peanut butter and banana, and we'd put it in marshmallows and put it all together in a pot and let it burn. It smelled horrible, and we'd roll it into turds, and the pledges would eat it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. I worked years ago. Have you ever smelled Limburger? I always saw this on TV. I didn't know what it was. Maybe we have this here. Yeah, we do, as a matter of fact. Underneath every radio station, there's a console with a board, and you pull it back, and there's all the stuff in the wires. And okay, this fellow his name was Bob Lassiter. I used to work with. He had a tremendous voice. He has since passed, and somebody told me about this. But he said, I put some Limburger cheese in the console and screwed the thing back, and you don't know where it's coming from. Well, I didn't realize when I said, hey, that's funny, until I realized I'm sitting there first. But it had to become what. And I was just, I couldn't say anything because I didn't want the joke to fail. But I sat in this fog, this mist, this funk, this wall, this curtain of feculence. It was, dear God, it was horrid. But I shan't forget that. So anyway, years later, not years later, after I was done, all in the air, you kept saying, God, all day, 3 hours of this. One time we had a person we knew who had an office chair, and the office chair was bolted to this kind of like a colander, like a pipe that fit to these rollers and casters. But in the middle, there was this empty, hollow tube. A friend took shrimp. They were cleaning out a freezer or something, took shrimp, dropped it in, and then rebolted this thing. The worst part about the smell was, as it decayed, obviously, was you couldn't tell where it was coming from. It just, wherever you went, say, what is this? You could go right up to it and it wouldn't hit you, but you would smell it around the corner. So that also gave me an interesting aspect about the triangulation of funk, which is, by the way, the name of my garage band in high school. John in North Carolina, you're on the Lionel Show.
Hi. I read in the journal Nature years ago, I can't remember, 80s or 90s or whatever. Anyway, this scientist realized the fact that men's cologne was not up to par, that was garbage. And so he experimented. He took some woman's perfume, nice, he wouldn't say the brand, and put it on, and after 20 minutes, his body chemistry changed the perfume so that it was wonderful.
Ah, that is so interesting. You know, when somebody told me, and I never forget this, and I still do it, if you're going to put on cologne, men in particular, do yourself a favor, unless it's an aftershave balm, the best place to put cologne on is on your abdomen, not on your neck. Because when it mixes with your bodily heat, whatever organic pheromones or whatever that you produce, the admixture produces something which takes on a new, like this gentleman said. So keep that in mind, because there's nothing worse than somebody. Remember when Axe cologne, every young man had Axe, would be soaking in this. It's like, and then it stopped. It stopped for some particular reason. Catherine in Queens, you're on the Lionel Show.
Good morning, Lionel.
Catherine, are you enjoying this topic?
I certainly am.
Good.
Because it's only been in the last few years that I became aware of the pheromones. And I I'm fascinated by anything that brings people together, brings couples together in particular, and keeps them together.
Now you're saying
And
something
so-
which is interesting. You said you had never heard of pheromones, or you have become recently reacquainted with them.
No, I had well, within the last 10 years. I had never heard of them. No.
That's fascinating. Do you know that somebody said to me, I remember this years ago, somebody said they had their father's T-shirt or something in a plastic bag. And every now and then they would open the bag and smell their father. And I thought, okay, I never thought about it. Okay. Cut to the chase. Years later, something happened similar to that. It was somebody had passed away. We opened up, it was a laundry bag or something, and it hit me. And so help me God, I remembered that. And I remember what they said, and I could smell my aunt or whoever it was. I knew it. And it was so pleasant. Think about when a baby is born. Babies can't see, can't fixate. It doesn't really understand. It understands mother, kind of, sort of. Can't really figure out what mom is, where mom is. What does a baby know? Smell. And it is so important and so interesting and so fascinating that it's all it knows. It's also, if you want to get into really, I was a psych major, and developmental psychology was the most interesting. When a baby becomes aware of itself, when the parietal lobe kicks in, and it has self-awareness, and it realizes where it is and who it is. And that's why when artificial intelligence kicks into that, we got real problems. Robert, you're on the Lionel Show.
Good morning, Lionel. I assume you don't want the best smell and the worst I've ever had. You just want the worst?
No. Both.
Okay. Many years ago, I went on a folklore expedition up into northern Scotland. I was collecting local folk tales and superstitions and riddles and games and ballads. And a friend of mine and I
find that even more fascinating than the subject. What are you an academic? Or are you just a folklorist? Okay,
I'm a folklorist.
Okay,
I used to teach history. Well, we'll talk about that another time. I taught high school and college, but I'm a folklorist.
Okay.
Anyway, a friend of mine and I were up in northern Scotland, and it was a summer afternoon, and we were walking through the countryside, and we went through a village, and there was the most incredibly delicious aroma of heather and glen. Heather and clover. My God. It was like a combination of cinnamon, sugar, sweet. Okay, that's the best, perhaps the best smell in my life. I can still remember it.
Wow.
50 years later. The worst smell. Before I discovered Amtrak, I used to travel the country by Greyhound bus.
Oh, my God.
And in the old days, people could smoke on Greyhound buses, but that wasn't the worst aroma. Although if you were in a Greyhound bus...
The restroom.
Yeah, no, not the restroom.
Oh.
The back 3 rows were for the smokers. And it didn't matter where you sat because the cigarette smoke would come at you from all directions. But the worst aroma I have ever encountered. You know the Jersey marshes?
Oh, yes.
We were coming through New Jersey. And you know how Con Edison says that the smell of gas is like rotten eggs?
Yes.
Imagine 100 times the worst rotten eggs. This was the Jersey marshes. It came at you. It came right through the closed windows. It was like
even where the Meadowlands are.
Meadowlands. My God, Lionel, I can still remember. Imagine taking socks that you haven't worn, throwing them in just around, and then imagine the 1,000 worst smells. The Jersey marshes, to me, I can still remember the first Greyhound trip I took coming from California.
By the way, it's the sulfur, the thiosulfides. By the way, interesting that you say this about history. Yes. In Israel, in Jerusalem, we went underneath the city, and we were on this tour. And they never warned us about this. They said, we're going to go deep beneath this. Okay, fine. I thought it'd be lighted. Oh, no. It was
Listen, can I make a recommendation to you musically?
But I'm not done yet. I'm not done with the story.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay.
I'll tell you, make the recommendation, and then I'll tell my story. Go ahead. What is it?
Well, when you're playing music sometimes, a couple of times, the last time I talked to you, you mentioned Appalachian.
Yes.
From Appalachia. Play some good old bluegrass or old-time string band.
Will do that.
Oh,
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Just cuts me right through. Okay. What we'll do is this. After we take this, interrupt us, I want to explain to you what it was like in this trip beneath the streets of Jerusalem.
Can I make a music recommendation?
right in the middle of my story. It's like,
who cares about your story?
Yeah,
Can I make a music recommendation?
A nice jug band from the 30s. Hiram Pickett and the Doughboys. Would you please? In any event, this is Lionel with you on the Lionel Show. A skunk produces butane thiol. Whenever you see thiol, that's sulfur. Or scatole, Skatole, parenthesis, adds a fecal note. It's like describing, I think some holly and I see some iris and lavender, and adds a fecal note. Thioacetates stick to the skin and reactivate when wet, like the nightmare that keeps giving. We can detect a skunk thiol 1 part per billion, a level far below what most chemicals can be sensed. Now, what about some other animals? Are there other? Yes. How about the bombardier beetle? It sprays a boiling hot chemical mix of hydroquinone and hydrogen peroxide. It creates a mini explosion with a noxious odor. It smells of acrid, smoky, like burnt rubber and ammonia. That's the bombardier beetle. Then there's stink snakes or garter snakes. They emit a musk from the cloacal glands when threatened. It smells like rotting fish, swamp mud, and decayed onion. Hoatzin, a.k.a. the stink bird, Amazonian bird whose digestive system ferments leaves. It smells like a cow paddock mixed with rotting hay. Horned lizards. Some species can shoot blood from their eyes, mixed with foul-tasting compounds to deter predators. Not technically smell-based, but it stinks too. Ladybugs releases a yellow fluid from leg joints when disturbed. It's alkaline and foul-smelling. People compare it to burnt almond and sour milk. Wombats and koalas. Their scent glands produce a strong barnyard or menthol musk used to mark territory. Wombat excrement, incidentally, is cube-shaped, unrelated, but unforgettable. You see, you're not going to understand the beauty of nature unless I introduce it to you. Evelyn in Hudson County, you're on the Lionel Show.
Okay, Lion, right to the point. Leftover lunch in a Tupperware container that was sealed for about 6 months. It had mozzarella cheese in there, oil and vinegar. And whatever. I opened it on the trading floor where I worked because I was looking for my Tupperware container, and it was underneath the trading desk on the shelf. That smell traveled across the building. And I'm going to tell you, if you remember the company that went under because of their 2008, okay, that's where I was working. Table, what the hell is that? All the way from the other side of the building, and there I am with my Tupperware container. Oh, it was so embarrassing. It was horrible, absolutely horrible.
Do you not find yourself fascinated by something that is, let's face it, it's not deadly, it's not poisonous, but your visceral reaction to it, it's organic.
Oh, but I got good too.
Oh,
okay? Good. Okay. Cool water, men's cologne.
Really?
Very nice. And also, I remember this from my grandfather, but I asked the man on the street, what is that cologne you're wearing? He said to me, Old Spice aftershave.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it.
My father had Old Spice, also English leather, British Sterling, Brute, Menin Skin Bracer, and my favorite that I used to love, Aqua Velva. Out of the shower, it was the greatest, cleanest, most wonderful smell there is. You know what else is wonderful? This particular time of the show, 30 past the hour, Lionel with you on the Lionel Show. Back to where we go, back to the fun. Don't you love the way I just interrupt and you say, why is he doing that? It's to annoy you, to completely annoy you. Rusty in Queens, you're on the Lionel Show.
Yeah, you're the best at what you do. But the last half hour, this really, don't get mad at me, but this segment stunk, all right?
I got it.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. You know, you're a comedic wit. You have a talent. It's a gift. And I hope you never abuse it and use it for good. John on Staten Island, you're on the Lionel Show.
Good morning, Lionel.
Good morning.
Have you ever smelled something in your home, but it really wasn't, like, there? Like, sometimes I smell stuff, like, I'm not going to say, like, smoke or anything, but have you ever smelled, like say, like, smoke or, like, rotten eggs, but there's nothing wrong with your gas or there's no burning food in your home?
Interesting.
I feel like that's been happening to me.
So you're almost having like a hallucination, so to speak, like an olfactory hallucination?
I wouldn't really say that.
Okay.
But, like, there have been instances where I've smelled like rotten eggs, but there's nothing wrong with the gas.
Right.
Or I smell like smoke and no one's cooking anything.
No, I know what you're. No, I know. I know now that you're. But I'm saying it's almost like an hallucination. It's something that is being conjured up. That's all. That's all. I noticed the other day. I love the smell of pasta boiling. I love that smell. I don't know why. I just love that smell. There's something about it's not a memory of anything. Certain things I enjoy. Rodney in Pennsylvania, you're on the Lionel Show.
Hey, I got a smell for you. Comes out of my dog's butt, and he sits there and smiles and wags his tail when he does it.
You feel better now? Feel better?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's all that matters. It's good. It's thorough. I like that. I've been watching, like I told you, and I'm sorry, I never watched this much cable. I'm surrounded by this. I look up and there's Rachel Maddow, and I want to say, oh God. And there's CNN, it's like, oh God, just to see what it is. And I told you, then there's Spectrum, our local. I was like, oh, poor thing. Spectrum was like, oh, the little train that could. And then I look over here. Tonight, watching Fox, I don't watch Fox News. I saw Cory Booker give a Nazi salute all night long. This apparently fascinates these people. This apparently causes people to say, wow. Now, what is the name of that garbage song? I'm sorry. It's funny. Now, did you pick Garbage because of the name of the song?
Well, initially, I was looking at, if there was any songs of Garbage, and I realized there was the group Garbage that had the song called I'm Only Happy When It Rains.
Yes.
Talking about, then I thought about the smell of rain, which would be why I'm only happy when it rains. So that's how we got to that.
I thought, oh, interesting. So I was reading more into it. That's fantastic. I like that very much. I thought you were into garbage. And now if you have garbage, and also, are you a big hole fan?
I actually did just look at that as well.
Oh, so you're looking at you're thinking, I know in your mind, orifice, pit, hole, some type of skunk, dead skunk in the middle of the road, Loudon Wainwright.
Well, I was thinking Hole, another girl group from the 90s.
Right.
They the song that we have, of course, is called Doll Parts, but it doesn't talk about anything about smelling doll
Well, it
parts,
depends.
So.
I love the way you think about that. I find that fascinating. Mike is in Tennessee. Mike, you're on the Lionel Show.
I can't get. I was listening to your show and I kept keeping my. I had to
let you and your listeners in on something.
Thank you. Thank you. Please tell me.
Okay, I'm an ex-criminal investigator, disabled Iraqi vet, 2004 and 5. And
Thank you, sir.
when 9/11 happened, they called 9 of us in to guard our local armory, state of the art. And the feds was giving us intel dumps. And they told us, look, you open your mouth and jeopardize operational security, you will be prosecuted to the maximum extent the law would allow. If people knew, because I stayed at the armory, me and 8 other guys, for I think it was 93, 95 days to guard it, because it's state of the art and it had very technological advanced equipment in it. And Moroccans over at McGee Tyson, that's the Air Force Base south of Knoxville.
Right.
Okay, they were taking GPS coordinates all over the United States of military bases. And that what triggered memory, because I've had 3 traumatic brain injuries.
Wow.
But you triggered a memory, and I forgot about that. But every once in a while, stuff will come back to me. But
well, I hope
you triggered a memory, and I'm like, oh my God, people ain't got a clue what's going on.
that is true. I want to thank you. Do people ever thank you for your service? Do they appreciate
all the time?
Good.
All the time. I thank nurses. I'm in and out of hospitals. I got more titanium in me than probably what your water pump weighs.
Wow. From what? From what exactly?
Exploit IEDs, because that's my primary mission in Iraq. My units was hunting IEDs before the main convoys come out of Tikrit, Mosul, Samarra, oil tankers.
And they went off. Were they detonated often?
Yeah, about every other night. That and suicide bombers.
But you're a lucky.
No, I'm blessed.
How
I've
did
replaced
you?
The word
How
lucky.
did you? Let me ask you a question, Mike. How did you continue to do your work after the first? I mean, I would have been out of there after the first bomb. That's it. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, that was my job. I got as many back home alive. I don't know if you were seeing the movie Black Hawk Down, but my captain, I was a Bradley gunner initially. But I told Captain, I said, look, I ain't going over there in a turret. I said, get my boots on the ground. If I'm going to die, it's going to be on my feet, not in a turret.
Mm. Well, Mike, I want to thank you, sir. And I want to thank you.
I got as many back home alive as I could. I lost 6, but,
But I thank you for
more.
that. Thank you for your service, sir. Thank you,
Hey,
truly.
thank you for your service, man. I really enjoy your show, man.
Well, I appreciate that, Mike. Thank you. You made my night. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, sir. Well, wouldn't you love to just sit and I'd love to just talk to him about that. Think about that. You think you got a bad job? Diffusing bombs? What? I mean, just, oh my God. I'll be thinking about that now. Sometimes I have brain farts all the time. I'll be talking to you, and all of a sudden I'm thinking something like, oh my God, Liberace. Whatever happened to Liberace? How old was Liberace? Was it what? I don't know where does the Liberace come from? And then another thing too is I'm thinking about terrible things that I've done. Not on purpose. Like, oh, that really was terrible. Well, that was awful. I remember years ago, this is changing the subject. A friend of mine went through a 12-step program of some sort. And I think the world for anybody, because this isn't the government, and there are people whose lives were changed dramatically by AA and Al-Anon and whatever it is. And one of the steps was apologizing or making amends or what have you. And I remember talking to somebody about that. And I never got that call like, hello? Yeah, listen, who are you? It's one of I'm sorry. Who are you? Anyway, but I don't mean to mock this. But a friend of mine told me something interesting. And I don't know why I'm thinking about this. I'm having a brain fart. He said, be careful. He says, that part of the 12-step program? He said, sometimes a lot of people don't know it was you or they forgot about it. So for you to bring it up, you're opening up old cans of worms. So think about it. And I said, that really makes a lot of sense. Another story I heard. This is weird. Why am I thinking this? I knew a friend of mine used to be at the local pub. You know what his hobby was? It was almost like Fight Club, sort of. He would go to AA meetings, but like 35, 40-year meetings. And he said, have you ever been to one of those? I said, no, I haven't. Wow. I mean, these are 40, 50 years, and they're still going, and they're still talking about it. I said, aren't you violating some rule? He says, no, I'm not. I'm not telling you. He said, what are you doing to me now? I said, well, I'm not telling you who it was or where it was. But I thought to myself, this is fascinating. So the other day on YouTube, I came across AA meetings. Famous people, Anthony Hopkins, John LaRoquette. Hello, my name is John. Hello, John, and I'm an alcoholic. And I became just mesmerized by not only the stories, but how great the speakers were. Now, if I had just died and they had gone through all my YouTube stuff, they would say, first of all, they'd say, this is the most demented person who has ever lived. But apparently he must have had some kind of a problem because we've got 50 of these things. So that's why somebody said, always leave next to your bed a very like Beowulf or some book, Chaucer, with a kind of a bookmark halfway through to make it look like at least, because if God forbid to find you in, different states of excitation, it's another story. Another one too, another thought, another brain fart. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. A friend of mine was in his parents' house restroom, and he was communing, I should say. And he bent over, and when he went to get up, his head hit the towel rack and shattered it. He said he was losing consciousness. And he thought, I can't. I'm going to be like Elvis. His pants were at half-mast. He was not done. And he says, I can't die. Not, I don't want to die. I've got too much to live. It's like, I can die, but not like this. Okay. Here's the funny part. When the plumber came, or whoever it was, the guys who fixed this, had to get rid of the old piece, he turned to my friend and said, how did you break this? They had chisels and they couldn't get it. It was like made in like 1900. He says, well, I got it with my head. He says, you hit this with your head? And this guy's got goggles and hammers and they couldn't get this thing off. Now, you're asking yourself, why are you thinking that right now? And I don't know. I don't know why I do this. And sometimes years ago, I had this old program director who said, sometimes when you talk, you go from one subject to the next. I said, I know. Uh-huh. And you like that? I said, that's the secret of my genius. I go from one thing to another, like a bee from a flower. I can talk about smells to a person dying while relieving himself to AA meetings in one sentence. It's a challenge, but I can do it. Bob in Brooklyn, you're on the Lionel Show.
Hey, buddy. Good job you doing. Hey, I was in Woodstock. I'm 79 years old, and I'm a wounded warrior also. I got
bless your heart.
Poisoning.
Thank you, sir, for your service.
Oh, you're welcome. I got radiation poisoning from nuclear bombs. I was custodian for nuclear bombs in Italy for the Italians in case the Russians, if we lost in Vietnam, they had divisions down on the border of Europe to invade, but we didn't lose. So the whole thing in a nutshell, anyway, I wanted to say I was in Woodstock. I walked the walk. Everybody out in the fields, all their blankets. You know where they went to the bathroom? They had no bathrooms. All the bathrooms were crap all over the seats, pee all over every. You pass out if you went in the little cabin there they had there, them little portable porta toilets. But anyway, so then that night it rained. It poured. Everybody left their blankets out in the field. There was smell coming up out of the. It was like. Even the kids, everything, they all pooped right, made a little pocket hole, boom, 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 all over the place. It was phenomenal. And then go down in these little ponds and go, And I said, what are you doing going down there? Look what's floating in that pond. Brownies, from
Bob, let me tell you something. First of all, I want to tell you something. If everybody who says they went to Woodstock actually went, there'd be like 3 million people in Woodstock. So I believe you went there. But whenever people talk about Woodstock, they talk about the halcyon days. We found him on a Woodstock. We were 500,000 strong, and everywhere there was song and celebration, and Joni Mitchell and CSNY, and there's a summer of love and the brown acid. But I always thought about how great that would have been. And I thought that, Bob, until this moment with you. Whenever I see Woodstock.
It saved a lot of people. A lot of people, the LSD and all that other stuff, some of it was spiked.
Right.
And there would have been a lot of big problems there. But even still, they had water trucks coming in. All the stores on 17B going toward Monticello, they were taking ketchup and mustard. That's how hungry they were. They wiped the stores out. They didn't have no bread, no cans, beans, everything. They wiped out completely.
Thank you for this. Now think about this. Ketchup and mustard, people starving, no beans, human egesta in blankets, people passing out, streams with various biological products floating about. I never thought about that. I always heard it was a beautiful thing. These naked people would be dancing and blowing bubbles, and hey, it's Jimi Hendrix, and hey, now because of this, it's another story. Another story completely. Duffy in Dover, Delaware. You're on the Lionel Show.
Hey, Lionel. Dipples oil. It's from rendering cow bones. It's the worst smelling substance on earth.
Wait a minute, what did you call this now? Dimple?
No, Dipples oil.
Spell that.
Dippels.
Dipples oil?
Yes.
Is that a brand or a name for a collective?
That's the name of the inventor.
I'm looking this up. Dipples oil. Bad, huh?
They used it to destroy water wells during the wars.
Okay. Dipples oil, by the way, it says, or sometimes referred to as bone oil, is a nitrogenous byproduct of the destructive distillation of bones. A dark, viscous, tar-like liquid with an unpleasant smell. It is named after its inventor, Johann Conrad Dippel. The oil consists of aliphatic chains with nitrogen functional groups called pyrroles, pyridines, and nitrites. Dear God, where did you come across this?
It's from watching war documentaries. They say a few drops of it will contaminate a well to where it is absolutely undrinkable.
So you like to watch war documentaries? Is that your thing?
Yes.
You must be quite the ladies' man.
You could say that.
All righty. I think I just did. All right, my friends. That's 800-848-9222. Between Dipples oil, my new horror of Woodstock, this is one of those shows where it'll take you hours to decompress because you'll be thinking about lady with the Tupperware. How about the lady with the decubitus ulcer and you can see the thigh bone? Dear God, this is talk radio. And when I was in college, I happened upon this old man who had this little shop, and he had made cigars for like 70 years. I mean, it's the most incredible story. Inside this old, I don't think he had a radio. I think he had just this bench with all the old tools, the half moon blade, this particular gum that they would use to seal the cap. And one time I was talking to him, and I loved to talk to him. And so this fellow came in and he said, Mr. So-and-so, his name was Maniscalco. He said, would you ever be interested in buying a scale? He said, for what? He said, to get a precise measure of the filler, because he had the filler, the wrapper, but the filler was always loose. He says, precise measure. He says, yeah. He said, well, what do you mean? He said, well, if you're going to do a Corona or double Corona or a Panatella, do each of them have different amounts of filler? He says, oh, yes. So he says, okay, give me a number. Give me an amount. Half an ounce, 3/4 of an ounce, 2/3 of an ounce. What do you want? He says, give me a number. So he said, okay, half an ounce. He picked up with his hands this filler, shook it until he remembered it, put it on the scale. Boom, there it was. It was the most uncanny thing I've ever heard. Okay, so as I'm talking to him, he's asking me, so who is your family? What do you do? What do you do? Who are you? And I said, well, I don't know how I did this, but we had this fellow it was my grandmother's brother, Uncle Nick. And Nick was kind of like, I don't want to say he was a gangster, but he was a tough guy. And I always heard about him. And he died trying to save, he was a bootlegger, but tried to save his friends who were caught in this underground, not a shaft, but this underground place where they stored the rum that they would get from Cuba. And it was packed in straw, and they thought maybe somehow the straw mixed with something. Anyway, there was this noxious gas, and each of his friends went down to try to secure this area when they heard a raid was coming, and he was the last one in, and he died trying to save his friends. But he was just this wild story. And I always heard stories about Uncle Nick did this, and Uncle Nick did this. At one time, they hijacked him and my Uncle Louie, and Nick said to the person who hijacked him, he says, you better kill me, because if I find out who it is, and Louie says, shut up, and I heard about Uncle Nick, and he used to do this, and my grandfather bought a car that would turn out to be a lemon. So my Uncle Nick, my father's Uncle Nick, went to this car on Adabo Drive in Tampa and told the guy, listen, ask around who I am. When I come back, I want the money from this. Sure enough, he came back, had the money, and he went to his car, took out a gallon of gasoline, poured it over the car, and lit it on fire. That was Uncle Nick. Uncle Nick, Uncle Nick, Uncle Nick. Okay. So as I was talking to this old man that I just happened upon and enjoyed just spending time with him, I said, my dad's Uncle Nick. He says, wait a minute. Nick, that's not Nick. And then he mentioned his name. He said, yeah. He said, that was my best friend. I said, what? He says, yeah. We used to go to whorehouses in Cuba. I said, wait a minute, wait. Are you sure? He says, oh, yeah, absolutely. So I thought, oh, my God. So I'm telling my father. So I said, guess who this guy is? This is Uncle Nick's best friend anyway. But as he's telling me this story, and as he's drinking this Cuban coffee in the afternoon, and as I'm in this old kind of a musty place with the tobacco and the stories and that, how sometimes old men, there's a look to them. All of those things came together. And I don't know why sometimes I just think of this. Things or stories like just now. I don't know why I remembered Uncle Nick. You bring this out in me. Very quickly, Michael Flynn, you're the last call of the morning or the evening. Michael, you're on the Lionel Show.
My husband...
I'm sorry, Michael Lynn. Excuse me, I thought you said Michael. I'm sorry, go ahead, please.
Yes. My husband... he's dead now, but when we would walk to show, there were times, not just one occasion, when he would smell roses, and he'd look for the bush, and there were no roses that we passed. And after this happened, I said, let's walk several different ways to show. And we did. And there were times when he would smell roses on the way to synagogue. So he said to the rabbi one time when he was in a class, and he said, Rabbi, the funniest thing happens to me walking to shul. I smell roses. And the rabbi said, Baruch Hashem, this is the Shekhinah. You can smell Shabbat.
Wow.
very few people can smell Shabbat.
Michael Lynn, I thank you for that. What a show. Gentlemen, thank you. Riff Raff, thank you. Nature Boy Matt Blaze, thank you, and thank you for being a part of this. We'll see you tomorrow if the good Lord's willing and the creek don't rise.